Starliner is almost ready to fly again. Voyager 1 has once again resumed sending coherent data back to Earth, and we got some new info on Starship refueling. So let's do the thing.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Segal.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome back to another episode of NSF Live. Still haven't determined a new name, but we're working on it. But we're having kind of a fun one this week because we're doing a combined museum show with our standard off-the-rails show. So we'll do a little bit of a short off-the-rails show, and then we'll throw to Das and Elysia, who are in the field at the Intrepid Museum. They're going to give us a walk through the Apollo exhibit there, and yeah, it should be really awesome. So joining me today, I'm Jack. Hi, I'm Jack for NSF. Joining me today, also, as usual, is Sawyer. Hey, Sawyer. How's it going?
Hi, Jack. It's going great. I mean, it's Friday. Good day. We got space stuff to talk about, and I'm really excited to see the museum exhibit at the Intrepid, too. So a lot of fun stuff to look forward to.
Indeed. The only sad thing this week is no EJ, alas, but EJ will be back, I think, next week. And as a bonus, we have Das and Elysia. So, yay!
Well,
yeah,
I could be like EJ, Boston good.
You got to get a book. You have to have like a book and be like, oh, I'm reading my book. Like, there's multiple things.
Yeah.
We can argue about train good, car bad. Yeah, we can create a believable facsimile of EJ in the meantime. Cool. So Sawyer, first thing off the list here this week is Starliner's getting ready to launch on the 6th, and it's been a long time coming for CFT, huh?
That it definitely has, but we're finally at a point where it's tangible. The flight readiness review is completed, and all teams are currently go for launch, as you mentioned, on the 6th, 10:38 p.m. Eastern Time, so a nice nighttime launch for you there. The crew just arrived the other day at the Kennedy Space Center, and this mission, I mean, we had the sort of failures along the way to get to this point. We had OFT-1 back in 2019, which, due to an onboard clock issue, kind of caused it to end the mission early because it misfired completely because the clock was totally wrong. And yeah, I mean, they got the capsule back at least. OFT-2 then docked with the ISS uncrewed, and now that same capsule from OFT-1, Calypso, as it's named, is currently sitting atop the Atlas V N22 at Slick 41. There is the team that gave the go-ahead for launch. You can see them all. They even have the crew flight test flag flying now at the press site as well. They usually do that for crew missions based on whatever mission it is. It used to be the name of the shuttle.
Nice.
So this one's really, and this one's really cool in that this is the first time that we have launched crew from Cape Canaveral Air/Space Force Station since the 1960s, and the first time that a crew has ever launched from Slick 41, where they'll be flying out of on the 6th. So a lot of cool history.
Yeah, big deal. I mean, it's pretty cool to see the sort of revival of the space industry over the last, decade plus. And now we're getting crew launching from a brand new pad. And pretty soon we'll have crew launching from 40 as well, which, more crew capable pads, more better. Absolutely. And Okay, I think this is some rollout footage that we got from D. Max and D were, I think, both on hand for this and got some amazing stuff. Just look at that. That's a spacecraft. That's a human carrying spacecraft. That's just neat
It's
to
also
see.
really cool to kind of see the differences between that and Crew Dragon. I mean, they're two totally different looking vehicles, and I kind of like that. They each have their own charm to it, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
SpaceX kind of has that newfangled, everything has to be slick and have rounded edges feel, whereas this one's like, you know what, it's a nod to the past of the old capsule design, but a lot more high tech.
Yeah, it's
Hopefully.
also it's weird how Starliner, not weird, it's interesting how Starliner is like more squat and triangular, I guess, if that makes any sense. I've probably failed geometry. Don't ask me about it. But Dragon is like way more of a gumdrop shape. I don't know. I guess this is more obtuse and Dragon is more cute. I have no idea. I'm not good at math, okay?
I mean, that's kind of what I was trying to say basically there. So I guess, do we dare call it Stubby Capsule?
No, no. Why would you put that out? Don't. Sawyer. Chat is gonna, I'm looking at chat right now. They're gonna latch onto that. Speaking of chat,
in this case, Stubby Capsule, good.
if you guys have any questions, at NASA Spaceflight in chat, and we'll see it pop up in some software we have running in the background. Let's see. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
we should probably mention the crew as well, because we kind of haven't talked about them yet.
Right, that's sort of important.
Yep, so you've got the commander, Sweeney Williams.
Hang on, Kevin, can we have a different thing on screen when we talk about the crew?
Yeah, we were going to get
Thank
to
you.
that.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyways, Sawyer, who's on the crew?
Oh, that's unfortunate. Suni Williams, Sunita, as she goes by, is the commander for this one. It's very interesting with this mission, because way back in 2015, I think it was, EJ and I were at the ISS Research and Development Conference in Boston. And while we were there, they announced the astronauts that would be flying on the commercial crew vehicles. And Suni was there. At that point, they hadn't decided who would fly on which capsule. Karen Nyberg was there. And then there were others to be named down the line. So the astronauts that are actually going to be flying on it have changed dramatically. There was one person who left because of a medical condition, one who was reassigned to a Crew Dragon flight. So we've got Suni Williams as the captain, and then you've got a commander, and then you've got Butch Wilmore, who will be in the second seat. And we were talking about this in the pre-show. His call sign is Spanky, and I'm not going to go into why. But there's also a third backup crew member, and that's Mike Fink, who, if I had to guess, is very likely to fly on the first operational flight at this point.
Nice. And yeah, I don't know if, Kevin, you have those queued up, but Max got some really beautiful shots of the crew arriving at KSC in classic astronaut fashion in a pair of T-38s. Like,
of course.
Just, I don't know. Maybe it's because of NASA that I love the T-38 so much, but something about a T-38 in NASA paint is among the most beautiful aircraft to me. We do have a question here from Shane asking, does anyone know why it's called Calypso? That is the name of the capsule. Sawyer, do we know why they named the capsule Calypso?
It has to do with mythology, I believe. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Give me a minute and I'll get back to you on that one. And I believe I flipped who's commander and who's pilot, but it will be Suni and Butch.
Excellent. Space Pope, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. If you got a membership from Space Pope, be sure to thank them. And Wilbo Tiberius Baggins, what's up, Wilbo? Gifting a Red Team membership. Thank you both for supporting the show and channel. Oh yeah, there's the Max pictures. Oh my god. I hope we can show these on screen, because that second one. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Good job, Max, as always. Let's see.
Absolutely
I'm gonna put some more questions to us here while you look for that, Sawyer. Booster 4 is asking, why did Boeing not remove the burn scars the capsule has? Burn scars?
Yeah, it there's a little scorch mark that we've seen on the side of it. It's actually very similar to, time to bring Crispy up in chat again as a spaceflight official, shuttle, where you had the thermal blanket. It would get scorched quite often, and if you look at any of the shuttles in the museums right now, you'll notice up close that that super clean white exterior is not clean and white at all. It is quite charred. So they're basically doing the same thing. And I believe our own Ryan Caton asked a question about that during a press conference following the flight readiness review. So it's keeping its battle scars.
Nice. Also, speaking of Ryan, they say in the back channel, they named the spacecraft after Jacques Cousteau's oceanography vessel, RV Calypso. It was a former British Royal Navy minesweeper converted into a research vessel for oceanographic research. I can read. And Ryan is also saying that the blankets still do their job even when they're scorched. So I guess, yeah, gonna retain its battle scars.
Response. Yeah.
Kevin, I mean, seeing the astronauts is cool and all. Can we see their planes? Can we see the planes?
Of course.
Okay, astronauts, yes, they're going to space. Very cool. Amazing humans. Planes? Yeah. Look at that. That's beautiful. That's gorgeous.
That's just plain cool.
Oh my God, Sawyer. What about the one with the two in it? The two planes. The second one there.
I mean, both are in there.
This is just me directing the show from the back seat. Sorry, Kevin. Let's see. Let's do a couple more Dragon questions and then move on, because again, we do have a truncated show.
I'm sorry. What craft?
What did I say?
Wrong crew capsule. The Dragon.
Oh. My brain works sometimes.
Come on, just think, star. Everything is freaking star in space.
Everything
right
is.
now.
It's not a star. It's not a T-38. It's a Star 38. Wait, that's something else.
There you go.
That's the one I'm talking about. That is gorgeous. I
Nice,
love
with the
that.
canopies popped.
I love that shot. And there you go. There's Butch and Suni. Fantastic. Yay, planes.
And then Kevin, if we get a sec, if you while he's doing that, if you can pull up my flex for after we answer these questions.
Okay, I'm aware of the flex. Bideford is asking, what is the size difference between the two capsules? Which one is larger between Dragon and Starliner?
I mean,
I don't actually know their internal volumes off the top of my head.
Right. I mean, in terms of actual size, Dragon is more on the long side, whereas Starliner is more on the wide side. But in terms of the amount of crew that they can carry, technically both can carry 7. It's just that right now Dragon is operating with 4, and Starliner, to start, is also operating with 4 once they go operational.
Good deal. All right. Well, I think that's close to it for Starliner. Sawyer, are you going to be in the field for that one, or are you going to be in the studio?
Oh no, I will be in the field for that one, especially because I have been following this mission for so long. Let's see if we can go back to 2017. I was down in Texas for something totally different, and while I was there, I'm like, of course, I have to stop off at the Johnson Space Center. So we went and got to actually go inside the Starliner training craft that you see right there.
Nice. No way, is that Robin?
That is Robin Segal of Supercluster, yes.
Nice.
And then you got me, and then as we were talking about Mike Fink, who's currently the backup for this mission, and then I got to dock it to the International Space Station. So
classic Sawyer flex.
Right.
So hey, look,
two different simulators. The one that was like everything. It had the seats in it, had the screens, the flip switches, all of that. And then there was this one, which was the docking simulator. So
nice. Also, hey, look, it's Sawyer's Instagram. Everybody go follow Sawyer on Instagram.
And yes, that concludes the Sawyer Flex section of this NSF Live.
We might need to add a graphic, like a specific graphic, and sting for the Sawyer Flex portion of the show. It's common enough. I mean, we have the fight mode like sound effect and everything. Maybe we need a Sawyer Flex portion for the show. Cool. Well, I think next up we will talk about good old Voyager 1, which has been sort of on the fritz for a while now, just sending back garbled info, right? And NASA just recently announced that they're able to understand it again. They're able to be in communication with it again and get useful data back from it about the health and the status of the I guess it's not a satellite, of the probe. Pretty awesome.
Right.
I know a lot of space fans who rejoiced when this news came out, and I'm sure you did as well, Sawyer.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is the deepest objects that we've ever sent out into space, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, out of the solar system, basically, where no
Right.
spacecraft has gone before. And this is 1970s technology that we're talking about here as well, that we're still communicating with. I believe, if I remember when I was at JPL a while ago, they basically said we still have to keep a lot of the old computers around so that we can still talk to it and communicate the data with it.
Right.
So the fact that, especially not only that they got it back, but they lost contact with it back in November. It's one of those where it's like, is it still gonna be able to come back? After a while, you kind of lose hope, but
Right.
here, this thing that is putting out less energy than a light bulb is sending back usable science data again from outside of the influence of our sun.
Yeah, it's wild. It's simultaneously crazy that it's way out there, like beyond the heliosphere, and also just like mind-boggling that it took so long to get there. It's like
Oh yeah.
it's a good thing where we tried so hard to maintain communications with it, because I mean, good luck getting a probe out there anytime soon for any kind of detailed scientific work. Other than this, is Voyager 2 beyond the heliosphere, or is that, I forget what Voyager 2's status is.
I think recently both of them officially crossed.
Nice.
I would have to
And
double
Voyager,
check, but yeah.
Voyager is the one with the old golden record and the is that the one with the Carl Sagan plaque, or is that Pioneer? I think it's Voyager.
Well, I know that's the golden record, which for some reason we decided to send aliens, naked people, and a map to come find us. But
Yeah, we did send them a map on how to come find us, which I like. Yes, good idea. Also, potentially worst idea ever. It's like, hi, we're right here. Come get us. This is what we look like. We're soft and squishy and easily invadable.
yeah. Here's our weak spots. Also, here's our music.
You're like, oh, this music is great. They can live.
Yes.
Or
little Chuck
like,
Berry,
oh, this music is terrible. Over. Humans over.
and then we just start trying to talk to them, saying hello and all that, and they're like, wait, what are they saying?
What did you call me? Doing the fish. Thank you for becoming a Capcom member. At Capcom level membership and above, you get access to the Discord. So pop into the Discord and say, hey, there's all kinds of cool channels in there. There's a gaming channel. There's, of course, channels for Starship and a whole bunch of other things, including sports ball or whatever food you're eating, or, if we're doing an NSF meetup, or, various other things like Artemis and Blue Origin. Or also, you get the pre and post show if you're in the member Discord. So we go live for the members like a number of minutes before the show starts, and we stay live after the show ends for a number of minutes. So enjoy your perks. Thank you, Doing the Fish. Ironclad gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much, Ironclad, for doing that. We really appreciate it. Oh,
hey,
what?
Elysia.
It's Elysia.
From Twist.
Oh, it's Twist. I thought for a second we brought Elysia in for a museum show trailer or stinger or something. Musical Wolves.
Since this is a shorter show, if you haven't, after all the museum stuff and everything, after that, go check out This Week in Spaceflight.
Indeed. If you don't know, which how do you not know yet, but This Week in Spaceflight publishes every week on Friday, so it's like a double whammy every Friday. You get the news show, This Week in Spaceflight, and then you get us off the rails on NASA Spaceflight. But yeah, I don't know, we might change the name. Kevin, what did you just do? Stop that immediately. Why would you do that? Why would you do that, Kevin?
It's sending a message
Anyway.
to the aliens.
Anyway, Ironclad, thank you for the gifting 5 red team memberships. I think Kevin's trying to make me his enemy today. Musical Wolves, thank you for the super chat. They say, it's amazing NASA can communicate with Voyager, yet I lose my Wi-Fi signal in the kitchen. Yeah, it's wild. Isn't there I think there's one dish in the DSN left, and it's in Canberra in Australia that can communicate with it. It's insane.
I don't know if it's just the one, but Canberra for sure definitely communicates it. But don't forget, you can actually take a look at who the Deep Space Network is communicating with at any moment on the JPL's website, and also see where Voyager is, as we've seen on or other craft as well, with eyes on the solar system from JPL.
Let's see. It looks
I feel like I'm a NASA sponsor today.
I mean, hey, they do cool stuff, and you're cool because you know about what they got going on. I don't.
Yeah.
I just went to Deep Space Now. NASA's JPL is in the process of performing updates on the Deep Space Network Now website. It's not available during this period. Okay, so I can't see what they're broadcasting to or receiving from right now, but it is cool when it works. And Ryan is giving me guff for how I'm pronouncing. It's Canberra. Sorry, Canberra.
Yeah, it's technically it's 2 syllables.
Canberra. It's hard. It's hard to do. Apocalypse Cow. Danger Moo. Thank you so much. They say, or no, they're gifting us 5 red team memberships. Thank you for that. Yeah, see, there's the offline page. I was like, why isn't I refreshed a couple times, didn't do anything, and then that little info box popped up. Adrian, thanks for gifting a red team membership, and RC Horseman gifting 5 red team memberships. Thank you for that so much. Let's see, we got some Voyager questions.
I would Voyager a guess that there are.
Geohound is asking, does Goonhilly connect with Voyager 1? I don't think so. No, I think it's a DSN thing, but I could be wrong. I think they just wanted to work the word Goonhilly into a question. I mean, can't blame them.
Unless someone had a bet or something to get you to say that.
It wouldn't be the first time. Let's see. 42 Spacebar is asking, how do they play the gold record? I mean, duh, with a gold record player.
Of course. Although that is kind of an oversight that we sent them a record, but not a record player.
Right. Well, see, my immediate question is a gold record player a record player that is made out of gold that plays gold records, or is it just a record player capable of playing a record that is gold?
So it's a life-size Grammy.
Oh, that'd be great. Has the horn and everything.
Just the gold.
I think it's a phonograph. Yeah, gramophone, phonograph. One of those Edison inventions. I'm gonna get Edison fans mad at me.
Yeah, just don't try and run different speeds on it. You're not gonna do well with the 44s.
Let's see. Booster 4 is asking, how is Voyager getting its power? It's an RTG, isn't it?
RTG. Yep.
Which stands for?
Radio. I believe it's radioactive thermal generator.
Radioisotope thermal generator, I think is what it is.
That's it. Yeah.
Close enough.
Either way,
you still get the points.
Nuclear power. Got a giant boom sticking out of it, and it's basically has a radioactive nose.
Wilbo Tiberius Baggins, again, thank you for the super chat. They say, I've got Starlink, miss nothing. Nice. Well, except for when the satellites do the little handover. But it's short.
Yeah.
Chrono Blitz is asking, why wasn't there a Voyager 3 or 4? That comes down to the whole Grand Tour thing, right? Where at that point in time, in the, late 70s, all of the planets were in the exact right position, so if we sent a probe on the exact right trajectory, we could visit all of the outer planets. But that only occurs super infrequently. I think every couple hundred years, something like that. The next one won't be for a while. So NASA took advantage of that alignment.
Yeah, and you didn't really need a third. They could do 2 spacecraft that worked to swing by all of them.
Philip Howell in chat is saying radioisotope thermoelectric generator. Nice.
Ooh, fancy.
And Robert Manette becoming a Pad Rat member. Thank you, Robert. All right. Well, I mean, Sawyer, any other Voyager
Yeah.
thoughts? Or Chad, if you have any other Voyager questions, now's the time before we move on to the Starship news.
I mean, my brain's on its own Voyager mission, so I think we're good to move on.
Good deal. All right. Well, super happy that we're back in communication with the venerable Voyager 1.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Starship.
Mhm.
We got to talk about Starship. A lot has happened this week, but just today, we got a couple slides dropping from a talk that was going on from, I forget, what conference was this, Sawyer? Do you remember?
I'll be honest, I don't know the name of the conference. I just remember seeing the slides and going, okay, this is kind of cool.
This is getting real, right? This is exactly the sort of thing that we want to see in this phase of Starship's development. We want to see indications that refueling is being worked on. And I mean, the headline of this graphic says it all. Large-scale Starship to Starship cryogenic propellant transfer is a critical capability necessary to conduct the Starship HLS mission. So, yeah, pretty big deal. And thank you, Alex, in our back channel, saying it's the NASA Advisory Committee. Good deal.
Yep, the NAC, which is weird because it's an acronym in an acronym. But anyway.
Yeah, right. It's an acronym sandwich. So here's my question. Well, I guess first off, right off the bat, Starship refueling demo would consist of 2 starships, 2 launches, a target starship and a chaser starship. The target starship launches first, remains in orbit for, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks. They turn around the 1 pad in Starbase. This will be happening from Starbase. This is all information from the slide. So they're going to do it before they have 2 pads, which is kind of a interesting bit of information, and it makes sense, sort of, not really, I guess in retrospect, why SpaceX has been trying to radically drive down the amount of time that it takes between launches. And I think we've all sort of heard they want to get to that 1 month number in between launches, and that's something that they've been trying to demonstrate. And it's like, okay, well, why do they want to demonstrate that? Because it's part of the concept of operations for this refueling demo. So the chaser would launch as soon as basically the pad is ready to go. After the target starship launches, they rendezvous, transfer propellant, and yeah, this should all happen hopefully in 2025. I don't know, Sawyer, do you think that's a fair timeline?
Honestly, yes. Asked me this 6 months ago, I would have said no way. But I genuinely think it's possible now. Again, the rate that they're picking up at, the fact that they're planning on doing it all from a single pad, I think helps too. Again, not having to wait for the second one to be brought online. And if they really can keep turning it around that quickly, I don't see why not. I mean, SpaceX already has the know-how and everything in terms of on-orbit rendezvous and docking. So it's just the same thing on a much larger scale. Same, basically dock and transfer.
Indeed. So there's a whole bunch of information here that we will pick apart in greater detail in Starbase Update this week, so stay tuned for that on Monday. But we'd be remiss if we did not mention that this all dropped. Alex was digging around and found out that the target starship will have a probe, and the chaser starship with the fuel will have a drogue. So if you're familiar with like aerial refueling, that's sort of how it works there. Like the tanker has the drogue and the receiver has a probe. So that's pretty cool. Also, hot gas thrusters seem like they're going to make a return. That's one of the things mentioned on a couple of the documents. So interesting to see how that will shape up.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of questions in chat about this too. I mean, this is the critical architecture for Artemis. And as much as, it's NASA versus SpaceX kind of deal, this is absolutely critical, even though it says no NASA payloads, so that they can eventually carry a NASA payload, aka astronauts, down to the surface of the moon from either Lunar Gateway or transferring direct from Orion.
Let's see here. We got a bunch of good questions coming in. Kenan Copeland's asking, would these still be under IFT and then a number, or will they be separate mission numbers? I don't think we know yet. Honestly, I'm kind of done with IFT. Like, just call them Starship Flight, like Starship Flight 5, Starship Flight 4. That's what I would do.
But then again,
Starship
when you think about it, but I mean, all of the missions, like, again, OFT1, OFT2, CFT, go over to SpaceX side, IFA, DM1, DM2.
True.
I mean, I could still see them doing that. They may, I don't know if it would be the full integrated flight test type name or flight test 3 or whatever. It might be different because of the mission architecture.
Starship RM1, like refuel mission or refilling mission. But then is the first launch 1 and the second launch with the chaser is 2? Or is it like 1.5? I don't know. We can get into the weeds on this pretty quick.
Kind of like Gemini 7, Gemini 6, maybe?
Yeah, that would make sense. Gemini.
Or it's the same thing. Where you've got the rendezvous.
Yeah. Makes sense. CAPSA is asking, where did that 3 to 4 week orbit time come from? Can't see it mentioned in any of the published slides. That was Alex going through the actual audio of the talk that was given. Yeah, the transcript. There you go. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And Booster 4 is asking, didn't SpaceX scrap their plans of using hot gas thrusters and go to using the vents? Also, what are the differences between cold gas and hot gas? The temperature of the gas. No, really though, hot gas thrusters, if I'm not mistaken, have a higher ISP than a cold gas thruster. Cold gas thruster is more simple because you don't have to do anything other than vent a gas through a nozzle. So it's like a pressurized gas and a valve. Real simple, real light, probably cheap also. Hot gas thruster, much more capable, has much more thrust, but also has increased complexity and weight. Is that a fair assessment, Sawyer? Would you add anything to that?
No, I would say that's a fair assessment.
So clearly, while the cold gas thrusters appear to be working, at least so far, for Starship test flights, for things like a rendezvous and docking maneuver, maybe SpaceX has determined they need something with a little bit more oomph than a cold gas thruster.
My thought potentially is precision. I mean, again, it's one thing to rendezvous with it. It's another thing to totally have the precise docking and to be able to do enough exact small, I guess, puffs of gas or whatever it ends up being, the small maneuvering pods. Why is my brain forgetting like orbital maneuvering pod names? But anyway, that you have such precise control that you need over it. I mean, if you watch any of the Dragon dockings, you can see all the tiny little maneuvers that it ends up making. Shuttle, when it was doing its rendezvous and docking, actually went into a mode that was a lower impulse, basically, so that as it got to the station, it didn't risk damaging it. So
right, it's like fine control versus like broad control. Like you switch to the fine control thrusters for the extra little tiny adjustments.
Basically.
Neat. So yeah, looks like hot gas thrusters are going to return. Bob and Michelle Murray are asking, will hot gas thrusters be methalox? I think that's a fair bet. I mean, I haven't heard, any information that came out regarding that recently, but I mean, you already have methane, you already have oxygen, you're about to get more of it. So yeah, I think methalox for the hot gas thrusters makes a lot of sense. We'll have to keep our eye on McGregor Live in case they do any weird, like methalox thruster tests that we can discern.
Also, thank you for Verniers. That's the name I was trying to think of.
Nice.
Oh, that hurt my brain. Thank you.
Is it Vernier or is it Vernier? I don't want Ryan to yell at us.
There's no accent over the E, so you're fine. It's Vernier.
Okay. GeoHound65 is asking... GeoHound65 is asking, are hot gas thrusters mentioned due to the loss of control of Ship 28? I don't think so. I mean, could be. Maybe we'll see starships that are not going to be used for refueling demos with hot gas thrusters in the future. But if you told me this is only for starships that need to dock with another starship, I mean, yeah, okay, that makes sense. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yes, and shout out to Dr. Holly with the correct pronunciation in there as well with Vernier.
Vernier. Thank you, Dr. Holly. Gwen Ever is asking, will the refilled starship then come back to be caught fully fueled, or will it be vented off first? Kevin, can we go to that graphic showing the con-ops really quick? Because that graphic does show both ships landing. I don't believe it shows anything about venting happening. Kevin might be busy. Sorry, Kevin.
I mean, they both have the deorbit burn planned, at least for this test.
Right. So, seems like it'll be coming in
some, but keep some of it for the reentry portion.
Okay, yeah, there you go. There's the con-ops graphic that was released. So, and it shows both of them landing. So, take that for what you will. Again, we're gonna pick through. $5. I'll buy that for $1. What is that, RoboCop? So yeah, we're going to dig into that a lot more on SBU as we have time to go through the transcripts from the presentation. But that was some items that needed to be mentioned because it's super interesting. It's one of those things we've been trying to learn about and wanting to learn about in regards to Starship and HLS for a long time now. So now we have a smidgen of new info, and hopefully, again, as we dig in more, we'll get even more info. Eddie is asking, are they going to load propellant into the payload bay, or are they going to build a dedicated tanker with 2 giant tanks? I presume it'll just be a regular Starship, but maybe stretched tanks, or maybe tanks that go into the payload bay. I don't expect like a payload bay with a tank in it that's just for propellant transfer. That seems like a needless extra part. I don't know. Sawyer, what do you think?
I mean, I know I keep bringing it up, but don't forget we have shows about this every Sunday where we discuss shuttle, and it's kind of still on my mind. There's the mission extension packages that they could put in there and have the extra provisions and things needed to stay on orbit longer. So I could see them doing something like that in the payload bay, but at the same time, with a vehicle that size, with that much propellant, I don't see why you would need it. Maybe they build a version that doesn't have the payload bay and just extends the fuel tanks, although, again, that might affect the flight dynamics.
I thought you were about to say maybe they burn a version, or they build a version with no payload section. I was like, no stubby Starship, please, no stubby Starship.
Oh, that's what I was getting at, but they'll put something in its place so it's not stubby. No stubby Starship.
No stub ship, or Star Stub. Let's be real, it would be Star Stub.
It would be Star Stub, because everything has to start with Star.
Everything starts with Star, even Start.
So yeah, don't forget Shuttle Sundays, where we talk about all the cool different shuttle missions. Sundays, 3 p.m. Eastern. This week we are talking about STS 5 and 6, which is the start of operational flights for Space Shuttle, and the debut of Challenger as well.
Indeed. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad we're doing those. The Shuttle Sundays are fun. And if you can't catch it live, don't worry. We do publish it to the channel afterwards. Flamin' Hot Cheetos, thank you for the question. They're saying, I'm visiting Starbase early August. What advice do you have for me? I would especially enjoy it if I got to see an engine test at the Massey's test site. Well, Massey's it should be operational by the time August rolls around. It seems like things are progressing pretty rapidly for the static fire stand there, but seeing a test at Massey's is probably pretty tricky. You might be able to see it from Rocket Ranch pretty well, but other than that, Massey's is kind of tucked away there. Like you can see Massey's from various places around Starbase, but it can be tricky to get a good view. So, but in general Starbase advice, bring a lot of water, bring snacks, bring bug spray and sunscreen, stay on the other side of the road from SpaceX facilities, listen to any security guards. Just stay hydrated. Also, drive really carefully. Highway 4 is crazy. It's gotten a lot better from Massey's onward towards the beach, where they've done a lot of resurfacing, but between the Border Patrol checkpoint and Massey's, there's just an insane number of insane potholes to the point where it's like I just straddle the white line, like on the side, like two wheels in the in the I guess not median, emergency lane or whatever, two wheels like on the middle of the road.
The shoulder.
Everybody does it. Yeah, shoulder. Thank you. Brain work
You're
good.
welcome.
So yeah, just be careful driving, even when you're at Starbase proper. Like when you pull over to take a picture or see a thing, like when you're pulling back on the highway, just please be careful, because I've been hit. And you know, it's not a month that goes by that there's not some, you know, 18-wheeler that's turned over or just some kind of fender bender or what have you. So I think I've seen 2 or 3 cement trucks on their sides, just like on Highway 4. So Highway 4, not to be trifled with. Definitely, I'm not trying to like scare you or anything. Just like have your wits about you. Don't be like, ooh, Starship, and then, you know, not pay attention to where you're driving. But
yeah, I mean, one of those happened, within the last week?
Yep, it did. It did. So yeah, definitely enjoy your visit. It's going to be awesome, and I'm glad you're going, because I always try and impress upon people that Starbase is changing so rapidly, and it won't always look quite like it does right now. So to get to see it in the early days is a special experience, because you just get to sort of see what it is like. And then when it's fully grown up and there's multiple towers and more high bays and it looks completely different, you'll be able to say, well, I went there in the early days. So good for you.
Back in my day.
Oh God, I've
So
okay.
yeah,
thank you, Kevin. I just got a message from.
But I'm excited. Oh, go ahead.
I know we just got a message from Kevin that we are getting close to the museum show. So hooray! That's why I looked like I was dazed for a second there, because I can hear him and you can't. Sorry, Sawyer. You've never been to Starbase, but please continue.
No, I was trying to fill while Kevin was talking. They couldn't hear Kevin.
You're a better man than I. I just immediately throw Kevin under the bus. Master Toymaker, thank you for the support. They say someone on the Voyager team said I would send all Johann Sebastian Bach, but that would be bragging. I guess talking about the music on Voyager. I mean, if you're gonna send classical music, Bach is not a bad call.
I believe Bach is on there. I believe the Beatles are on there. Roy Orbison, I think. Chuck Berry for sure.
Nice. Quality.
Very.
They should.
You know what?
They should have.
Their Spotify. That's the intergalactic Spotify playlist.
Right. They should have put the Chuck Berry performance with Yoko Ono and
John Lennon.
Yeah. Like they could have put that on there, and it would have been, you know, the first intergalactic viral video. The aliens are like, I can't believe she did that.
I mean, yeah, that would I think cause intergalactic war right then and there.
If you haven't seen the video of John Lennon and Yoko Ono playing with Chuck Berry, add it to your watch later.
Nothing else. At least the freeze frame moment when you just see their faces and their souls disappear from their body.
Yes, it's amazing. And then of course Bill Burr did a walkthrough. It's amazing. Anyways, way off the rails. Lee Hughes becoming a launch director. Lee, thank you so much. You get your name at the end of NSF Live episodes. You also get all of the other perks, including the pre-show and post-show for NSF Live, including all the members-only photos, including all of the what, Kevin?
On the other one. Keep going. Got a minute.
Okay. I feel like I'm going crazy. But yeah, you get all the perks. So thank you so much, Lee Hughes, for that incredible amount of support and enabling us to do what we do. Speaking of doing what we do, I think we're about to throw it over to Das. So once again, Das and Elysia are in the field at the Intrepid Museum. So that is what we're going to throw to. They're going to give us a walkthrough of the Apollo exhibit there, which should be a real treat.
And then there'll also be a discussion afterwards with one of the crew members that's, well, not flying, but one of the crew members working on the program too. So you get a 2-for-1 special. Well, I guess 3-for-1 if you count us.
Excellent. Well, once again, thank you so much to our membies. But yeah, let's jump over to Das and Elysia at the Intrepid Museum. This is going to be good.
Enjoy.
Bye.
All right, folks. You know the drill. We come out to Intrepid quite often to bring all various live things. Give me some 5x5. Let me know if this is for us right now. We've got a super interesting setup the way we're bringing you this here today. But let me know that everything is working the way we anticipate everything working. Is everything working?
We don't
know.
Give
me a thumbs up. Somebody give me a thumbs up if this is all working the way that it's supposed to be working. Maybe they can tell us in the back channel or something. But we're here at Intrepid Museum again. It's actually astronomy night. But there's a free Friday thing going on. It's also astronomy night. There's still guests walking around the museum. But we have something very special to share with you today. We're going to walk through an exhibit live. Right?
That's right. Yes, we are now. I'm talking to a microphone.
Talking to a microphone.
We are actually hosting. We've had it for about a month now, and all summer long we are hosting the new Apollo When We Went to the Moon.
We're walking now.
Apollo When We Went to the Moon exhibit, which is co-produced by the U.S. Space and Rocket Center and Flying Fish. It is the largest temporary exhibit we've ever had here. It's incredible. And if you're familiar with the Intrepid, you know, of course, we have the Space Shuttle Enterprise. It's actually underneath the Space Shuttle Enterprise. So as we walk through, of course, don't forget to get some shots of the Space Shuttle Enterprise. But also, we've got with us here Sam, who is one of our visitor services helpers here. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sam. I'm one of the visitor experience specialists here at the museum. We're kind of the, I guess, to be not as humble as I possibly could be, the walking encyclopedias on the floor. We go around. We're around various exhibits, both inside the ship on the hangar deck, also on the flight deck, as well as the growler. And we talk to visitors about the content, the exhibits, everything. Any questions that people have, walk around the museum, we answer. Most of the time it is, where's the bathroom? Very important question. That's probably the most common one. But we also get lots of good questions about the exhibits themselves. Also, the tours, particularly the highlights tour, which is our hour-long museum-wide tour. You get a brief overview of the Intrepid's history. Cool. 80 years of history in an hour, as well as do the Concord Experience tours.
All right. Sam is going to be giving us a highlights tour of the exhibit right now. Again, just some high-level stuff here. We don't have forever to walk through. We don't have forever. But we encourage you all at home, come to New York, come to the Intrepid Museum, and explore this fabulous exhibit. It is open until September 2nd. So come and see it. Come to another astronomy night later in the summer, perhaps. But otherwise, Sam?
Okay, awesome.
Take it away.
Thank you.
One thing real quick, y'all. It's tougher for us to read questions right now, so I may try to grab a question or two, but we're going to try and get through as much stuff as we can here in the exhibit. Just a little tough for us to read chat. So let's get started. I hear a beeping noise.
Yes, you do.
What's up there?
So we're going to start at both beginning of the exhibit and kind of the beginning of the space shuttle. Right above us is a replica of Sputnik 1, the first ever satellite, so man-made object to orbit the Earth. This is a replica because the original one burned up on reentry when it fell out of orbit. So yeah, the Sputnik went up and it was rather remarkable. It didn't have any super advanced scientific equipment on board. It mostly just beeped, but it successfully managed to get around the Earth, and it was the first time that humans put an object in orbit. And that is what kicked off the space race. Put Sputnik 1 into orbit, but of course the U.S., the Soviet Union's arch rivals, definitely were not going to just stand by and watch. So a year or so after, the U.S. put their first satellites, Explorer, up into orbit. Explorer did have some scientific functions. Weather, one of them, like weather monitoring and stuff. This is also a replica because, like Sputnik, Explorer disintegrated re-entry. So both these objects got into orbit, but the reason why they got into orbit, like the actual rocket that they used, was designed for less than peaceful purposes. both Sputnik and Explorer originally went up on ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. The Soviet Union and the U.S. and the Soviet Union, of course, were in the middle of the Cold War, which is not a typical war. The Soviet Union and the U.S. did not officially fight each other, but instead were engaging kind of in a a rivalry between each other. Some of these rivalries were more like proxy wars with different allied nations, but also the rivalry was in terms of technology. Who was the greatest superpower?
So this exhibit is a really great example of setting up the space race. Of course, the context. Something we teach here at the Intrepid 2 is just the context of the space race, the Soviet Union, and just all of that tension. And Sputnik, of course, the beeping heard around the world. People were terrified because they thought it was spying on them. It was a bomb. They didn't know. You could tune into it via your shortwave radio. It was a little bit of panic. So the tensions are high. And, let's keep going here. We've got some other cool stuff over here.
Yes, we do.
I know over here on the right, we've actually got a real artifact, right? This is Wernher von Braun's desk and some of his tools.
Yes, yeah.
Pretty cool.
Wernher von Braun was a high-up American rocket scientist. Worked for the U.S. Born in Germany. And yes, he was one of the head rocket scientists. Of course, tens of thousands of people worked on the Apollo missions, and even before then, the Mercury and Gemini missions. But von Braun was a high-ranking, up there in the leadership role.
And of course, we've got the classic avocado green phone.
Switch of the era.
Very much.
Lots of things with that color green.
Love it.
Including the ship.
That's.
When you guys come in to see the museum, you'll notice that lots of the walls inside the ship and the submarine growler are painted with a similar color green. I'm actually very green color deficient, so they look the same to me. But it is a similar color green.
But that's right. So again, if you aren't familiar, the Intrepid Museum, this connection that we have to space is that we picked up 2 space capsules. We picked up the Mercury Aurora 7 capsule with Scott Carpenter, and also the Gemini 3 capsule with Scott Carpenter and Gus Grissom.
Yeah, Gus Grissom and John Young.
Sorry, that's
no
right.
ways.
Gus Grissom and John Young. That's the corned beef sandwich one.
Oh yeah, the corned beef sandwich one. No ways. When I first got my approval for highlights tour, I accidentally said John Carpenter went to space.
Oh gosh, I haven't given it to her in a while.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So this is kind of cool over here, right? We've got a suit that is similar to what Yuri Gagarin would have worn.
Yes. So this suit is similar to what Yuri Gagarin would have worn. Yuri Gagarin, of course, is the first human in space, also the first human to orbit the Earth. Mm-hmm. He made one orbit of Earth and then came back down. The total flight was around 100 minutes. And he wore a spacesuit similar to this one. So the thing about space is that it's very hard for humans to survive in space. Space is both very hot and very cold. There's not much air up there, if at all. Also a lot of radiation. So that humans can survive up in space, they need space capsules and, of course, spacesuits. And that's what this is. Yuri Gagarin wasn't going to go out in space for a spacewalk. He was going to stay inside the capsule. However, just in case something went wrong with the capsule, he needed some sort of protection as a backup. Additionally, he needed some extra protection when he was getting back to the atmosphere. Because unlike other capsules where the astronauts ride with the capsule as they re-enter the atmosphere until they land, Yuri Gagarin was actually going to eject from his capsule after the intense heat of re-entry. So once he got past the intense heat of going into the atmosphere, he was going to eject from his capsule, and he and his capsule were going to parachute down separately. In fact, as the story goes, the first thing, he actually landed in a farm in Russia, and the first thing he told someone as he was walking along after returning to Earth was something along the lines of, I'm a member of the Soviet Union like you, I'm a human, I need to borrow your phone. I need to call Moscow, tell them that I made it.
Anybody get a cell phone? And actually, so Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space in 1963, also wore a suit similar to this, right? And it's funny you mentioned that jumping out. I heard the reason that they actually selected her was because she was a parachutist.
Yes.
And that was kind of one of the only qualifications as to why they selected her.
Yes.
And she was perhaps terrified, I've also heard, when she was up there the whole time, too.
Oh, yeah. No,
Got to start somewhere, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Is this like a real suit, or is this like a recreation? Like, how do you get a Russian suit?
Soviet.
Well,
sorry,
yeah,
Soviet.
suit.
You're right.
Well, I believe
It's the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, so they can get whatever they want.
Exactly.
They have connections.
Yep.
Let's keep going. We've got some other cool stuff that are real artifacts as well.
Yep.
So this section is called The Race is On. This is an area where it's talking about the climate of the time. So, of course, the civil rights movement's going on at this time. There's, again, lots of tensions.
Yep, the Vietnam War.
The Vietnam War.
It's, it's the space race is not happening in a vacuum.
Of course.
Oh, yeah,
well,
it
the
is.
space
I mean, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of. Sorry.
Yes, but also no. No
I
way.
couldn't pass that one up.
Oh, yeah, no ways. So, so there's a lot of other things happening in the late 1950s, throughout the 1960s as well, that are kind of leading into this, these tensions of the space race and the Cold War in general.
And, of course, also the dream of Kennedy.
Oh, yes, of course.
To get us to the moon.
Yep.
And we have over here as well, one of those newspapers saying Kennedy slain.
Yes, we do.
That dream, and then...
Yep, that even though the man did unfortunately die in 1963, his dream definitely lived on and succeeded.
As we will see.
Yes, oh yeah, as we'll see. I do just want to mention with the Vietnam War, Intrepid had switched duty in the Vietnam War from 1966 to 1969.
So Intrepid served from World War II through the Vietnam War, so we have a number of connections with this exhibit.
Oh yes, definitely.
All right, so we've got a Mercury capsule over here.
Yep, this is a replica of a Mercury capsule. This is the U.S.'s first space capsule. There'll be one astronaut in here.
Very tiny.
Very tiny. In fact, the first American space, Alan Shepard, he has a lot of quotes, but one of them was, with the Mercury capsule, you don't go in it, you wear it.
You wear it.
You wear it. It's like a larger spacesuit.
Exactly. It's just an oversized, unflexible spacesuit.
Unflexible spacesuit.
So the Mercury program was very much the early stages of the United States' space program. Each mission, of course, had their own separate submissions, but one of the overall goals of the Mercury program was just kind of seeing if humans can survive in space. Can we actually survive up outside the atmosphere?
Will they like instantly explode as soon as they go to space?
Exactly.
That was the thing.
Exactly. It seems kind of silly today because we have the benefit of hindsight, but at the time, this was still uncharted territory. No one knew what was going to happen.
I've heard a wonderful analogy that the Mercury program was kind of like the baby stages. So you're learning how to eat, you're learning how to just basically like breathe and function. Gemini is more like a toddler, so you're starting to walk. You have the first EVAs, right? You're making some friends, docking together, sort of, and then Apollo is like, you got the keys to the car, you're a teenager, and you're going to the moon.
Yep, exactly.
So you can think of it that way. You're just getting your Corvette, and you're going to the moon.
Oh yeah, perfect analogy, especially since Scott Carpenter, the Mercury astronaut that Intrepid picked up, one of his missions was to see if he could eat solid food in space.
Like, could you actually swallow?
Could you actually swallow it? Because humans usually rely on gravity to get things down to the stomachs, but Scott Carpenter managed to eat small bits of solid food in space.
Nice.
We have muscles in our esophagus that can pull things down even without gravity.
That was the thing when they sent carbonated sodas to space as well. I think there were like space shuttle missions where they sent Coke and Pepsi or whatever. It was one or the other.
Yep.
And it was, can it be carbonated in space? Because on the Earth, the bubbles will come up and you'll be able to burp.
Yep.
But in space, if there's no gravity to differentiate the carbonated bubbles from the liquid, what would happen? Like,
Did they burp? What happened?
Nobody knows. Well, I think they decarbonated it, or it was like lightly carbonated or something.
Yeah, lightly carbonated, I believe. Also, carbonation and pressure is kind of wonky.
Yeah.
On Concorde flights, we have a British Airways Concorde, also part of the museum. They would always serve champagne. This, after all, was the Concorde. But people noticed that the champagne was not as bubbly as usual because of the difference in pressure.
Interesting.
Also, we're underneath Enterprise right now.
Yes, we are.
Fun fact.
So yes, we're underneath Enterprise right now.
Right underneath.
We're literally underneath.
Yep.
No, but you can see just how close, like even the lights of the exhibit, it's like inches from the bottom of it.
Yeah.
We had to use every single square foot and inch and centimeter of this space to fit it all in here.
Yes.
And it feels totally different. If you've ever been to the Intrepid before, just the space feels entirely different.
This is usually like a big open,
It's just open,
area. And you just walk around.
Oh yeah. No, exactly.
All right, let's keep moving.
Awesome.
Let's keep moving.
So right over here, you can see there's like a little theater thing, and this is like the launch experience. So they pipe in the sound of rocket launches. If you are tuning into NSF ever, you know we like to also pipe in the sound of rocket launches.
Occasion.
But this is like 360, so imagine you're setting up a home theater watching NSF streams.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
It'd be very cool too.
They got the firing room, mission control, and everything.
Yep, exactly. This is actually my favorite exhibits in this big exhibit because you really get to feel it. Surround sound, you get different shots of the Saturn V launching. One of them that launches shows off the deluge system, which is
We know that one.
Yep. Basically, as the rocket takes off, its rocket engine is going at full power. That generates a lot of heat. So to help protect the launch pad, NASA pumps water into the launch pad to help keep the temperature down.
I think we're going to get a rocket launch here.
Yep.
You may actually hear it. I don't know if y'all are going to hear it or not. Let's see.
Yep. So yeah, it's kind of hard to see at home here at home, but when you're sitting down there, you get a nice 360-degree sound of the rocket going off.
To talk over the launch.
Oh, sorry. No.
See you on the other side.
Oh yeah, that's the deluge system right there, by the way.
There you go.
Yep.
All right.
We're spoiled for rocket launches these days, aren't we? Gosh.
Well, it's like we've seen rocket
We've
launches
seen
before.
this.
Let's
All right,
move
moving on.
Yeah.
All right, so of course now we have the world, holding its breath, watching our moon landing. This lovely storefront display with all these old TVs and the newspapers, of course.
Yep.
Man has landed on the moon.
Oh yeah. Wouldn't put your quarters in those though. They tend to eat up quarters.
What happens to you? Do you come here afterwards in an empty amount?
Tried it.
No comment.
No comment. So yeah, because in addition to being a technological achievement, the moon landings is also very much a cultural phenomenon. The moon landings were, at the time, one of the most watched events on television. I believe over 500 million people watched Apollo 11 launch in 1969, which is pretty good considering the time. And it was also filmed in color, which is old hat now, but back in the late 60s was like big deal. It's like 4K today. So yeah, and the newspapers have talked about it. The 3 astronauts inside the capsule were constantly, had pictures taken of them. Mission Control was constantly radio communication and definitely sent some of that to the public. So yeah.
Awesome.
Very much an event.
So we've got some really cool artifacts behind us over here as well. We have our spacesuit over here. This is similar to the one that Neil Armstrong would have worn, right? This was used for
it is similar.
testing it out.
Yep. That is a similar design of what Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin wore on the moon, and of course Michael Collins wore while still inside the capsule.
This one was actually worn and tested, but it didn't go to the moon, though, right?
It did not go to space. So it does have a name on the spacesuit.
Lind. Yes, I noticed that.
Yep.
Yes.
So that might be the spacesuit of Don Lind. Don Lind didn't quite become an astronaut in time for Apollo, but he did get in time for Skylab, which was the mission after Apollo, which was the U.S.'s first space station. And unfortunately for Don Lind, he was the relief astronaut, like the backup astronaut for Skylab. And it just so happened that the 2 guys that he was going to be relieving were 2 of the healthiest men who ever lived. So he never got into space to Skylab, but he'd eventually go to space with the space shuttle missions. Challenger, I think.
We can look now.
Amazing.
Yeah, so yeah, now we can take a closer look. So yeah, there's a couple of advantages of the A7L spacesuit opposed to earlier ones.
Pardon the rocket launch again, too.
Yeah.
Yes, oh yeah. Full experience.
Every 90 seconds, a rocket launches.
Yep, exactly.
Eat your heart out, SpaceX.
Yep. So yeah, one of the main advantages of this kind of spacesuit is that all of the tubes and pipes and everything that help support the astronaut are now inside the suit. Originally there was some outside, which works very well, but in walking on the moon, there's rocks, there's mountains, you're physically walking on a barren lunar surface. You don't want anything to snag.
Right.
So all of that is contained inside the inside.
So this is really the first self-contained space.
Exactly. And very, very good at its job. There is one slight issue though. It's quite heavy. These spacesuits are around 200 pounds, which is heavier than I am. 200 pounds.
Wow.
Luckily, they are designed so the weight's supported throughout the body, so it doesn't feel as heavy when you're wearing it. But also keep in mind, they're going to space.
Yeah.
They'll be in zero gravity for a large chunk, and then the moon only has about 1/6 of the Earth's gravity, so it's feels a lot lighter when you're not on Earth.
Sure.
So yeah, this is most of the suit. However, it is missing a couple key parts. Namely its gloves. Oh, it has its boots. We'll talk about the boots a little bit later. But it's missing its gloves and its helmet, which are over here.
Oh, those are here too?
Yep, those are here too.
What is this?
This
I don't know what it is, so
I know
it's interesting to me. What is it?
Gotcha. I'm actually not quite sure.
This is the umbilical for the Saturn V, or so I was told.
Really?
Yeah. It looks a little different than how we have them today, huh?
So this are clamped down to the mobile launch pad at only 4 points, called hold-down arms. Arms held with enough force to support the rocket during high winds until the engines came on.
Yep.
So this is a hold-down wire, and
So I was told. I don't know.
whatever that says.
Yep.
It's an initiator, and then that says it's a vent port seal and lanyard, so it must be something that seals it and then comes off whenever it launches or something along those lines.
Yep.
Recovered from Apollo 11 launch pad after liftoff. Yeah, they stayed on the pad. They were part of the system that kept the Saturn V fueled, powered, and pressurized before launch. Neat. So I saw something and I was like, what is this? Like a drain cleaner for the moon landing or something?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have a lot of. We're going to talk about kind of the highlights of the Apollo exhibit right now. But there's plenty of other stuff that's really cool that, for time reasons, we're going to gloss over for now. But you guys can definitely see when you guys stop by.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to go through the entire countdown, you can come and see it in person.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
We don't have time to go through the whole countdown.
Absolutely not.
The hands over here, though, is something that is really special, I think.
Oh yes.
Let's talk about the hands.
Yeah, I love the hands. So.
Let's give them a hand.
Yep.
Seriously.
Oh, at least 6. So yeah. So. Spacesuits. Astronauts wear them to survive in space. However, astronauts also need to be able to do things while in space. And so the spacesuits and gloves for the spacesuits have to be both thick and sturdy enough to protect the astronaut, but it's also light enough to have the astronauts able to use the fingers and do stuff in space. If any of you guys have worn heavy-duty winter gloves or mittens, you know how sometimes it's hard to do things when you're wearing thick gloves. So one of the ways NASA got around this was they made the gloves for the spacesuits are custom made. So each spacesuit has 2 custom gloves that's designed to fit the hands that wear it. However, making a spacesuit takes a long time, and astronauts, as preparing for missions, can't, be hand models for a long time as the spacesuit is made. So instead, what NASA did was they took plastic casts of the astronauts' hands. So the astronauts, dipped the hands in a plastic mold, and then that's what the gloves made off of, not the hands themselves. So since the spacesuits were being made out of the molds, the astronauts had to recreate the conditions that they used to make the molds, which kind of sounds like a silly thing. Our hands don't really change as humans; they pretty much stay as they are. However, this actually did apply to Michael Collins, because Michael Collins, the command module pilot, he was the man that stayed in the command module as it orbited the moon, as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin actually went onto the surface. He was a very good husband. And he refused to take off his wedding ring for the mold process. You can actually see it right there.
So it's actually molded into the plastic.
Yep, it's molded into the plaster. You can see it right there.
And because he did that, he had to wear his ring in space too. But that was the plan, right?
Yep.
He never wanted to take it off anyway.
No, that was the plan. So he had to make sure that he wore his wedding ring.
Maybe his wife had something to do with that. I don't know.
No comment.
That's cool.
That's
like little stuff like, oh yeah, I know everything about the Apollo program. And it's like, well, do you know there's a wedding ring cast into the hands for Michael Collins' spacesuit gloves? Like, there's always so much more to learn.
A lot of people don't even know who Michael Collins is, though,
that is
to
true.
be fair.
That is
that's
true. Unfortunately true.
That is unfortunate.
Learn who Michael Collins is if you don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody knows who Michael Collins is, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We know. All right, let's see over here now. So you were mentioning the gloves, the boots. These are prototypes.
This looks like a conspiracy theory meme.
What?
Go ahead.
So these are gloves and boots for the spacesuits that went to the moon. These various different layers to help get air in, protect from heat and cold.
And the regolith too.
And rocket lift. Also just dust and rocks flying around, micrometeors. So, heavy duty, durable, but also you can move in them.
And the gloves have little rubber tips on the ends too. It's very important that they don't puncture.
Oh yeah, and also important that you have some grip, some extra grip too.
I have to explain myself. So these are the overboots specifically.
Yes,
right?
these are the overboots. So
when they went down onto the surface of the moon, they had their spacesuit boots, but then they had overboots that they put on top of that.
Yes.
So if you look at the bottom of the spacesuit boots and you look at the footprints that were left on the moon, and you're like, those don't even match. The production team that faked all this messed up. Well, no, you're seeing the footprint that was left by the overboot, and the bottom tread on the overboot doesn't match the bottom tread on the spacesuit, and that's why it's different. That's why I said it looks like a conspiracy meme. Because that's the overboot.
Yes.
That's not the spacesuit boot.
Gotcha. Yes.
There
you go.
Yep.
I always like pointing that out when I say overboots.
How often do you see overboots?
Twice. But if you think about it, that's actually funny it happened that many times.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
All right, so over here we've got helmets.
So we got the helmets. So much like the rest of the suit, several different layers to help provide not only protection for the astronauts, but also visibility. So first you have the bubble helmet made out of a clear, first you have the Snoopy cap, which is underneath the helmet. We don't have one right here, but you can see it on Neil Armstrong right there. This has like radio communication, stuff like that. That is the soft cap that goes underneath it so that the astronauts can communicate with each other. And of course, mission control. Mission control gets very nervous if the astronauts, if they don't hear from the astronauts in a while. So above the Snoopy cap is the bubble helmet, made out of a clear I'm so sorry, it's been a long week. Polycarbonate allows good visibility around, and then there's also an over helmet that goes behind them to help protect against,
Like an outer shell.
Yeah, the outer shell, exactly.
Yeah, it's like an outer shell. There's the pressure vessel, which is the bubble, and then the outer shell, so if you fall on the back and you bump your head, you're not hitting the pressure vessel directly. You have like a helmet, just like a bike helmet.
Yep, exactly.
You don't crack your skull, you crack the outer helmet.
Yep, exactly.
There you go.
Yep, you can more easily replace that than the bubble helm.
And then?
Yep, and that's the visor. So when the astronauts on the moon, there's no atmosphere really to help protect them from the sun. So the sun's a lot harsher. So they need to have some sort of eye protection as well. So that is the visor. That's a very thin layer of gold that kind of just helps protect them from the sun. But here's the thing about gold. It makes everything seem yellowish. And one of the jobs the astronauts were doing were taking notes about the color of the moon.
It's orange.
Yep. Well, exactly.
Not the first time, but yeah, it's actually orange.
So this visor has is a little bit retractable.
Right.
So if the astronauts need to take a color sample or something else where they needed to see true color, they would, of course, turn away from the sun, and then like peek. You can see it down here. They would kind of open it a little bit so they could quickly, see what color it is, write that down, and then get back. to the
I always thought it was just like, oh, open it all the way, close it all the way, and only when the sun is directly in my eyes do I need it down. But they could just crack it a little bit and peek down.
Yep.
If you couldn't do that, everything on the moon would be orange.
Yep, exactly.
It's orange. So is this. So is this. It's all orange.
Wow, the moon's really orange. Maybe it is made of cheese.
Maybe it is. It's orange.
Yep.
Fabulous.
All right.
All right. Awesome. Let's keep moving. So,
cool.
Of course, so this is the moon landing, like first moon landing kind of section, and now we're moving on to some later moon missions, and then also the future of everything. You might notice over here there is a Soyuz capsule, a little bit out of place, but that is actually something we have here all year round. That is actually flown in space. Gregory Olson, who went on space adventures, I believe it was, actually purchased and donated his capsule to be on display with us here, so we thank him very much for that, and we love showing it. I love it's a toasty marshmallow. It's kind of like the Dragon capsules, but it's not the Dragon capsule. It's brown, but you can see actually like the char marks on it. It's very cool to get all up and close with that. But we have that here all year round too, so come visit. Of course, we have our Saturn V rocket over here.
Yep, that is a 1:10 scale model. I believe that one actually did not fly to space, but actually did take off.
What?
Yeah. At least according
the scale model?
Yeah, at least according to the placard.
Wait, what? It took off?
Yeah.
The model?
I believe so. Let me double check.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. How do you launch something like this?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Really? Steve Eves launches 1:10 scale model in Maryland. I'm from Maryland originally.
April 25th, yesterday, in 2009.
Yep, so it
flew to 4,441 feet and safely parachuted to land on its tail.
Yep.
How about that?
So yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yep.
It's a recovered Saturn V.
Exactly.
They could fly this thing again.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Okay, that just makes it so much cooler. It's not just a model.
Eat your heart out, Falcon 9.
That's fabulous. All right, so over here, though, now we've got some of the later Apollo missions. Apollo 12, 13, 15, 14. I'm going backwards.
Yep. So these are after Apollo 11 was a great success. NASA wasn't quite done. They had more lunar mission, more Apollo missions to the moon coming up. And of course, as they do, they would just number them sequentially. So after Apollo 11 was Apollo 12. Then after Apollo 12 was the infamous Apollo 13 mission.
So over here we've got an experiment that was used in Apollo 12.
Yep.
Solar wind spectrometer.
That looks like a
This
scrubber.
is
Yes, it is.
The infamous, what is it? Squared of, I can't remember.
Lithium hydroxide.
Yeah, yes. But this is
the squared.
the
squared around too. Yeah.
This is the infamous thing.
Nice.
I don't know that it's actually the one, but that's essentially what they were referring to on that. And then this is a recovered part of the engine from Apollo 13.
All right. And in terms of time, y'all are going to have to go down to cue the next show.
We are. I'm going to hand this off to you.
Camera here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You talk.
Don't
gotcha.
To highlight this over
here. Oh yeah, of course.
We're going to get that next.
Gotcha. I do want to give a brief shout out to one of the Apollo 13 astronauts, though, Fred Hayes. He's played by the late great Bill Paxton in the movie. Fred Hayes is very good in the museum because after the Apollo missions, he stayed with NASA and became one of Enterprise's first test pilots.
So we love Fred Hayes. We've actually had him come. We've actually had him come to the museum a handful of times. He was here 2 years ago, I believe. Actually, with his new book.
Yeah. Yep.
And he's going to be on an Astro Live actually in 2 months.
He is?
Oh,
yes,
really?
He is.
Now I know.
Tune in, guys.
Thanks for letting us know.
In June. Tune in.
Nice.
All right. Y'all talk, and I'll take the camera here for a second.
Just doing a little handover.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm going to come around this way. Yep. I got you.
Cool.
You can just
Awesome.
keep talking.
So, as astronauts went to the moon, NASA realized something. The amount of samples that they wanted were a bit too large for astronauts to carry, and also they wanted to explore a bit more of the moon. So NASA came up with this idea. What if we send a car up to the moon? So that is what eventually became the lunar rover. So the lunar rover is, of course, the first electric car in space. There are 3 of them that went to the moon, and the one behind me is a replica because they were left behind. NASA realized that, we have limited weight to get back from the lunar surface, back to the command module, service module, and then back to Earth. So we want to make sure that weight has, samples and not the car. So, so unfortunately, the lunar rovers that went to the moon are still up there. I like to say that they weren't abandoned. They're just future museum exhibits.
Future museum exhibits. Nice.
Yep. So yeah.
Is the museum on the moon, or do they come back from the moon?
Either one.
Either one.
I mean,
you're good. You're flexible.
Yep. So yeah. So a couple of remarkable things about this rover. My favorite and what I think the most remarkable aspect is its weight. The lunar rover is only around 460 pounds.
460 pounds for the whole thing?
460 pounds, yep. Made with a lightweight aluminum. It's that light so that it would save weight on the capsule.
Yeah.
Because this has to be carried from Earth to the moon. So NASA wants to make sure that it takes up as little weight as possible so NASA can save a little bit on rocket fuel. So there would have been a seat belt. This replica at this time doesn't have one. It's just like a little waist strap, just so that the astronauts aren't jostled around too much. Powered by silver zinc rechargeable batteries.
Was it on the back or are they in the middle somewhere? Where are the batteries?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I started reading the actual PDF of the operating manual for the lunar rover.
Like a Haynes manual, like an auto repair manual for the moon rover.
Yeah, exactly. I'm an archaeologist by training, so I found it a little dry. But it's fascinating. You can find it on NASA's website.
Yeah.
You can print out and read, or read on your computer, the actual operator's manual. So yeah. So there's in addition to equipment that allows it to move, there's some scientific equipment and communications equipment as well. There's two antennas. The big one's a high gain antenna. The small one's a low gain antenna. Both are constantly pointing towards Earth. You can see it in the picture there behind the rover. That allows communication with mission control.
Gotcha.
Additionally, we have a film camera. That's the one that kind of looks like a weird laser pistol.
Looks like an old camera. Oh, it does have a pistol grip on it.
Yep, it does have a pistol grip on it.
It's a pistol grip camera.
Yep. That is a data camera, so you just point at whatever you're looking at and then take pictures.
Look at that.
Yep, that is a film camera. Film camera. And then also, not currently on this lunar rover, is a color TV camera. That would have been the very front, right next to the high gain antenna. You can kind of see it on the picture behind there, and that has it so that the astronauts can have color video of the moon.
Ah, gotcha. All right, this is just too cool. Like you know that there's a moon rover that went up there, and if you haven't seen the animation of how the moon rover unfolded, the whole thing was like IKEA flat packed in the side of the lander, and they sort of unfolded it from the side of the lander. In all, what was it, 400 and something pounds?
Yeah, 460.
460 or so.
Yep, sorry, 463.
63, it says on the sign. Nice.
Yep. That's about 210 kilograms.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
And even the stuff like the tires, right? Like imagine the rubber tires and how heavy a rubber tire would be. Well, these tires aren't rubber.
No, they're not.
They're metal mesh.
Yep, metal mesh helps with the weight and also with just protecting against all the rocks and stuff on the moon.
Yeah. So you still get a little of a suspension, like rubber tends to bounce or flex a little bit, right?
Yep.
And here you still get the suspension because of the mesh, sort of gives a little bit, but you also are able to drive around the moon.
Exactly.
Not going to get a moon flat either.
Exactly. On the tires, which is great because there's no AAA in space.
No AAA in space. All right. What other parts do we have to see here? We'll get over to some other things.
So yeah, we have some other parts as well. We have an experimental a model of an experimental winged spaceship.
Looks like
this was Werner von Braun's one that he made for kind of his idea of what a crude Mars mission would look like.
A crude Mars mission with wings like that.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, wings that large wouldn't have worked quite as well as on Mars. Now we know that the Martian atmosphere is not nearly as dense as Earth's atmosphere, so flight behaves differently. It's still possible, as the Perseverance rover and the Ingenuity drone showed. You can fly on Mars, but it's a lot harder. You need more
lift.
Lift, exactly. You need to have the rotor spin. So, as the space race, this is a very good exhibit. So as the space race, went on and kind of, as NASA went to the moon, this race became, I don't want to say, became friendlier with the Soviet Union. And eventually, in 1975, the U.S. and Soviet Union, as like a measure of goodwill, they were going to have a joint space mission where Apollo astronauts and Soyuz astronauts were going to meet up and hang out in space. So the Apollo craft took off with a little docking bay that could safely dock the Apollo and Soyuz capsules. The Soviet cosmonauts took off, and they met up in space. They joined, they connected, and they hung out with each other for a couple days. And then afterwards, when they're done, they took a picture celebrating this event.
I have to put on my headset. So
gotcha.
You just keep talking.
Okay, cool. No worries. So and this was the last official, this was the last Apollo mission, this one. It didn't go to the moon. The last Apollo mission went to the moon was Apollo 17. This was Apollo 19. But this kind of marked the end of the Apollo program. NASA was then going to focus more on Skylab for the space station. And then after Skylab, of course, was the space shuttles.
All right. We're coming up on the end of the live walkthrough. It's not the end of the show today because we still have the talk about Artemis that we're going to be sharing as well. Okay. But is there one last thing we want to see while we're here?
Yes.
Yes. Where should we go? Take us there quickly.
I just want to quickly give a shout out to the Apollo 16 mission.
Okay.
So Apollo 16 was the second to last mission. They had a lunar rover with them. And I want to give a shout out to them because the command of Apollo 16 was astronaut John Young. We did briefly mention John Young, I believe, at the start of our time here. John Young was one of the astronauts on Gemini 3. That was his first time in space, and that was one of the space missions Intrepid picked up. So Intrepid has a connection with John Young.
Like Intrepid,
right
there's John Young.
Yep.
Intrepid actually picked him up. Like Intrepid's an aircraft carrier, and we used naval assets to go out and recover the capsules and stuff that came back down. Intrepid itself.
Yep, it was Intrepid for that one.
No kidding.
Yep. And then later, John Young would be the commander of the first ever space shuttle mission that went to space, STS-1, which was Columbia. So in addition to having a connection with Intrepid, John Young also has a bit of a connection with Enterprise.
Gotcha. Good deal.
Definitely wanted to give a shout out to him.
All right. So, folks, here's the deal. I'm actually going to turn the camera around this way. Look at me. I have my headset on now, like I announced to you. Let's go over this way, Sam.
Gotcha.
I get the shuttle back behind us there.
Yep.
But, folks, I don't actually know if I can get Sam in there. So, yeah, I can. There we go. I'm using the regular camera as a selfie camera. But thank y'all so much for joining us on the walkthrough here. The show's not over. I want to say something real quick. This is an active environment, right? There's still other guests in the museum. So we're not like, go away from this exhibit. You're not allowed to be here. Like, the important thing is that the guests are able to experience this. So when you see people, and we're literally waiting our turn sometimes to go in to see the next exhibit. And massive thanks to Intrepid Museum for letting us do this, the live walkthrough. Not everybody can make it out here to the museum, right? It's just something that's not realistic for everybody to do. So being able to share this sort of stuff with you remotely is really fantastic. So if y'all like this sort of thing, I know a little rough, active environment, there's background noises, the lighting, we're not like putting up big light stands or spotlights or anything. We don't want to detract from the environment here in the exhibit. But we do appreciate y'all hanging out with us as we walk through the exhibit. What did y'all think? By the way, like, is this a thing that we should do more of? We can always bring more equipment. We got like myself and Kevin is running things in the cloud, and Jason was here holding a camera. Sam, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And hello, everyone.
Absolutely. But let us know what you think of this. This is sort of like an extended Astro Live. Usually the Astro Lives are remote, and we talk to a guest or a NASA astronaut or an engineer or something like that. And this time, we're here at the museum, so we thought that we would also add a little bit to it. So far you've heard the regular NSF crew talk about the news that was happening. Then y'all hopped over to us for a walkthrough of the Apollo when we went to the moon exhibit here. And now we're going to learn a little bit about Artemis. We've got a presentation that's happening and a whole bunch of stuff so that we can share that with y'all. So, you know, we can continue walking. I'm waiting for them to tell me when that next presentation is ready, but let's walk this way.
Gotcha. Cool.
While we go.
So, I know we
okay, I think we're actually good.
Oh,
Sam.
okay, gotcha.
All right, so we're going to go down to the presentation now, and next what you should hear should be Elysia down at Hangar 3.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks for hanging out, y'all.
Thanks. See ya. Very cool.
All right. I think we are ready to go. All right, all good up there? Jason, give me a thumbs up if we're good up there, please. All right. Well, everyone, welcome. Hopefully you all can hear me on the internet too. Welcome to those of you tuning in at home. Welcome. My name is Elysia Segal. I'm the producer of public programs here at the Intrepid Museum, and I'd like to welcome you all to our Free Friday and Astronomy Night. Thank you all for being here. Oh, thank you. Hopefully you guys have been having a great night. We've got so much fun stuff going on here. We've got activities from our education department over here. We've got our brand new exhibit, Apollo When We Went to the Moon, all the way up in our Space Shuttle Pavilion, if you haven't seen it already. Of course, home to the Space Shuttle Enterprise, if you haven't seen that already, which it's kind of hard to miss when you see the exhibit. There's so much in there, but make sure you look up and catch that. And then, of course, later on tonight, we've got our friends from the Amateur Astronomers Association up on our flight deck for a bit of stargazing as well. So be sure to check that out, too. But we are also so thrilled tonight to be hosting a fabulous guest speaker with us for our live presentation of Astro Live. So if you are not familiar with it already, this is a free online show that we host once a month, where we talk to scientists and engineers who are talking about and doing amazing things in space. So I am so thrilled in a moment to be welcoming to the stage Dr. Timothy Straube, who is going to talk to us a bit about the Artemis program and some of the things that his team is doing to work on the Orion capsule, which will be sending the next people to the moon. Back to the moon, I should say. But to get us started off here, first we are going to show a video to get you all pumped up. Here we go.
It's a new era of pioneers, star sailors, and adventurers.
We're going beyond anywhere we ever went for Apollo.
Splashdown, Orion, back on Earth.
And there's a lot more coming.
Our destiny is always to go and see what's further and what's next.
There actually metal is being bent, shaped, formed to build the things that we're going to use.
We are going. This is reality.
NASA is at a historic inflection point, poised to begin the most significant series of science and human exploration missions in over a generation.
Astronauts will live and work in deep space, and will develop the science and technology to send the first humans to Mars.
I'm really looking forward to all the science we'll conduct on the moon, the samples we'll bring back, the knowledge we'll gain from understanding the lunar environment better than we ever have before.
The more nations and companies at the moon, the more we learn, increasing our capabilities while strengthening things right here on Earth.
We are going to the moon to learn how to live on other planets for the benefit of all. Let's go.
right, who's pumped now, huh? That video is so exciting. All right, so as I mentioned, we have a wonderful special guest with us tonight, Dr. Timothy Straube. He currently serves as the Deputy Manager of the Avionics Power Software Office for NASA's Orion program at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. He's worked on human flight missions at Johnson for 30 years, and most recently led flight readiness activities leading up to the Orion spacecraft's successful Artemis I mission in 2022, which was the first human-rated mission to the moon in over 50 years. So everyone, please put your hands together. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Timothy Straube.
All right. Hey, thank you guys. Came in from Houston today and super pumped to be here with you guys to talk about the Orion spacecraft and the Artemis program. So we talked about Apollo a little bit. You guys know about the Apollo missions. So Apollo was 50 years ago, and we sent people to the moon. We explored there, landed on the moon 6 times, sent 12 individuals there. Artemis, we're sending people back, and we want to go back there for a longer duration. It's a commitment for exploration and a commitment for peaceful exploration of the moon and deep space. So how many of you guys would be interested in going back to the moon? Raise your hand. All right, excellent. And how about Mars? Would anybody be interested in going to Mars? Okay. Well, so that's what we are after with the Artemis program. The Artemis program is designed to take people back to the moon for long durations of time and learn how to live there, learn how to build there, and eventually send people back to Mars. So that's what we're trying to do. So what does it take to do that? With NASA, it takes all of these different spacecraft and all these different parts of NASA to succeed. Right now, we're over here at the beginning. We've got the Space Launch System, which is the world's largest rocket that sends the Orion capsule into space. We've got the ground systems. And then, of course, we've got the Orion spacecraft that I work on. All of these other pieces are yet to come and in our future. They're part of the Artemis generation. The new explorers, people like you guys, can go out there and be part of the space program in the future and help us develop these systems and send people back into space. So, what have we done so far? So Artemis I, about 18 months ago, we flew in 2022 on a 25-day mission. We sent the manned capsule, the Orion capsule, out as far as any human-rated spacecraft has ever gone, and we'll talk about that a lot. That was a fantastic mission that I was very happy to be a part of, but that's not it. That was just the beginning. In about 18 months, send people up to the moon. And then from there, a year later, we're going to send people to land on the surface of the moon. And that'll just be a test mission to go down to the surface. Beyond that, we've got missions designed to get us to the moon, down to the lunar surface to stay for extended periods of time. Exploration, science, and eventually, after we've built up enough experience, we'll be able to go on to Mars. And that's what we're looking for, and that's where we need people like some of you young guys out there to be ready and geared up, ready to go and help us get out to the next generation, out to Mars. So, this is my spacecraft, the Orion, a spacecraft that I work on. It's made of 3 main components. The black capsule there, which looks very much like an Apollo capsule, but is about 30% larger, is the habitable portion. It can sustain 4 crew members inside there for long duration missions. The service module, that's the power portion of the spacecraft. It's got the rocket engines. It also has all the solar arrays so we can have power for our missions. And then finally in the front, we've got the launch abort system. The launch abort system is designed for use early in the mission during launch. If there's any kind of an issue, it will pull the crew module to safety and make sure that the crew is safe, but that part goes away relatively quickly. So, this is the mission that was launched back in November of 2022 that I was lucky to be a part of. So here is the Artemis I spacecraft. as it was before the mission. Up on top, we've got the crew module, and here you can see the solar arrays that are part of the service module. And this is just, a few weeks before launch, okay? Here we've got it stacked up with the launch abort system. And where's the Orion going? It's going to meet its ride into space, the Space Launch System, SLS. So if you guys have seen down at KSC, the vehicle assembly building is a huge, enormous building. That's where they assembled all the Apollo rockets. That's where they assembled the Space Shuttle. And that's where the SLS and get stacked together and get ready for their ride out to the pad. So this is the SLS with the Orion way up on top. This thing is over 200 feet tall. Out on the mobile launcher, going out to its spot for the launch. This is one of our favorite pictures from the pre-launch. So down here you can see our ride, the SLS, which is a great rocket for us. Up here we've got our crew capsule that we worked so hard on, and of course right there's our destination. That's where we're going back to the moon. And that's the launch. It took us a couple of attempts. We tried earlier in the fall of 2022 to launch, but out of an abundance of safety, we took a pause, went back and did some work on some of the fueling systems, and then back on November 16th, 2022, we launched the SLS up for a 25-day mission. So what exactly was that mission? Well, it was a flyby of the moon, and then we get inserted into a very interesting orbit called the DRO, or the Distant Retrograde Orbit. In this orbit, we actually go out beyond the orbit of the moon, and we go 40,000 miles past the moon, out as far as any human spacecraft has been, before we come back and return back to the lunar vicinity, and then come back to Earth. So the whole team took 25 days. It was a fantastic mission. We learned a lot about the spacecraft, about all its capabilities, what it could do, and where we could learn more about science and things like that. We did as much as we could. Okay, so now we're going to walk through some short videos that kind of talk through different pieces of the mission. So this is a spacecraft adapter jettison. It's part of the shroud that goes around the capsule while we're going up, and you can see it just goes off, and we get some good views of it as it's going down while we're still early in the mission. The last jettison, we talked about the last, that's the part that pulls the capsule off in case anything has a problem, and we got some really good views of that. So this is inside the capsule. You can see it's only a couple minutes into the mission. You can see that it's getting pulled away. That's a different view out the window. You can see that part is being pulled off. In the event of an abort, it would actually pull the capsule off with it. But of course, we didn't have any need for that because we had a very good launch vehicle on this ride. And so we just jettisoned it off into space, and it splashed down in the ocean. Okay? So you guys will appreciate this. We've got 4 solar arrays, as you guys saw on the other picture of the spacecraft. Each of one of those solar arrays has got a camera on the end of it. So you can think of it as the camera deploying, or the wings deploying, solar arrays deploying. On the end of each solar array, there's a camera. They're all pointed back to the spacecraft, but we can also move them around to take different kinds of pictures. So it really gave us a good opportunity to take pictures of ourselves and to take good selfies with different things like the Earth and the Moon. Okay, so this was one of my favorite parts. Early on, I've worked on a lot of the software that fires the engines that control the spacecraft. And here you can see the reaction control thrusters moving to move the spacecraft into space. There's a lot of different thrusters. We've got 24 thrusters on board and a main engine on the back. And you can see them all in action here. And this is the main engine, which is not firing in this picture, but you can see all the reaction control system moving and firing as we're moving through space. Okay? This is one of our favorite pictures here too. You can see, right, this is a pretty good selfie. So you can imagine that on the end of the solar array, you've got this camera looking back at the spacecraft, but also looking back at Earth. So you can see here too, this is only on day one, how fast we're moving away from the Earth. We're picking up speed, the Earth is getting pretty small in the rearview mirror, and it really gives you an amount of scale in terms of how fast we go out to the moon. So this is on flight day 4. This just kind of orients you inside the cabin. Of course, I said there was no humans on board, but that didn't mean we didn't have any passengers. We had some mannequins on board, and this particular mannequin, his name is Munican Campos, and he's has a bunch of sensors inside of him as a mannequin, so we can measure different things like gravitational forces, accelerations, and radiation, so we can get that science to let us know what is going to happen to people when they're up on their ride and going up there to the moon. See down here, we'll get to Snoopy later, but we use Snoopy as a zero gravity indicator. He's basically on a tether, so you can tell when you're going up by watching on video. When he starts to float, that means you kind of made it into space. And on the way back, you'll see in a video later, he kind of gets pulled around, which means you've re-entered Earth's gravity field and are being pulled by gravity. Just some other things in the capsule. These 3 areas right here, this would be where the crew would be able to have their display screens and their control of the spacecraft. Since we didn't have any humans on board, we basically put some demonstration items here that allowed us to interact with the spacecraft from the ground, and that was pretty cool. Okay? So this was probably the most terrifying part of the mission. So here we are on flight day 6. 2 things are about to happen. You can see obviously the spacecraft is getting close to the moon, but number 1, the spacecraft is going to go behind the moon where it can't see the moon. So what happens, or when it can't see the Earth? What happens when you can't see the Earth? Well, that means we can't talk to the spacecraft. So our communication is basically line of sight. So as soon as we go behind the moon, we can't talk to that spacecraft anymore. But the other thing we're going to do when we get behind the moon is we're going to do our most important burn. It's a burn that we need to do behind the moon because we use the moon's gravity to push us out into the deep orbit, into the DRO. So it's the best place to do that burn is directly behind the moon, which means no communication. It means the spacecraft had to do it all by itself. And of course, it worked. It was successful, but it was a very stressing time as we spent 5 long minutes waiting for it to come back out the other side of the moon. Okay. This is probably most people's favorite picture from the whole mission. So you can see here, this is the furthest point out during the mission. We're about 40,000 miles away from the moon. But you can see back here, here's our eventual destination we want to go to explore, and here's our home. Home back on Earth is where we want the spacecraft to get back to. So it's a really compelling image to see our spacecraft with these 2 celestial bodies there in the background. It's an image that's pretty iconic. On Apollo, they had some really great images where they really get like the Earthrise, but they never got an image like this where they had both the bodies kind of in this frame like this at the same time. So it was really fantastic for us. So here's another flyby of the moon. This is on the way back. We're a little more relaxed at this point during the mission. We're able to use this time to take some pictures, detailed pictures of the surface of the moon. So when we go back up there, we can use some of those scientific cameras to be able to help us do navigation closer to the moon. We actually use the craters that are on the surface of the moon to be able to help us tell where we are. There's no GPS on the moon right now, so you've got to be able to navigate in lots of different ways, and that's one of the ways that we plan to do it when we're going back to the surface of the moon. Okay? So this is another video that's showing, hey, this is the Earthrise. So it's similar here. We weren't quite as anxious when this happened because we had known that the spacecraft had successfully executed 1 previous burn autonomously. And so this was a pretty joyous time during the mission. In fact, I remember we were in mission control and we got these images back. We all thought it looked like a science fiction book cover. And so we were just staring in awe at the pictures. A bunch of NASA guys supposed to be looking at all the technical data, and all we could really do is just look at the pictures and really fascinate over how awesome the moon looked with our spacecraft in there. And then the reason it looks like this is because the sun is just out of the field of view. And so it really was an inspiring time for all of his engineers. All right. Always exciting, though, is reentry. So when you come back from the moon, you're coming back at 25,000 miles an hour. And in about 20 minutes, you've got to go from 5,000 miles an hour to 0. And so you can see what happens to Snoopy when you start experiencing that gravity from Earth. And you can see outside, it starts to get very bright. Some very interesting colors start to develop. And that's due to the superheating that's taking place outside the spacecraft. You're getting super hot, and you're getting all these very hot gases that are coming by the windows of the spacecraft, keeping it very comfortable inside here, of course, for the crew. So these are the sounds that were actually taken during the reentry. And all the thumps that you hear is the reaction control system, the thrusters, maneuvering the spacecraft back and forth. We don't fly like an airplane, of course, but we can do a little bit of maneuvering to get the thing to splash down where we want it to come down. The big trails of light that you see, that's the plasma, the superheated gases that are coming off the heat shield and making these hot gas plumes coming behind the spacecraft. So this part of the sequence takes about 10 minutes. If you guys are interested in watching the full video, you guys can take a picture of that, and it'll take you to a YouTube video link where you guys can see the whole thing. And if you guys watch carefully, you can see that Earth's horizon in the background. It kind of rotates around. That's us trying to steer the spacecraft. So where we're pointing to is we're trying to get off the coast of San Diego and land there and meet a Navy ship. And we actually take these sounds, and so when the astronauts go and do simulated training for what reentry is going to be like, we play these sounds as part of the training, so they can experience exactly what it's going to be like. All right, so we should be coming to the end here almost. Can't remember where this cuts off. And you can see partway through here, you saw some debris being liberated. So we had some coverings on the spacecraft. Some of that part burns off as we're coming down. And this is usually everybody's favorite part of the mission, is when you see those parachutes come out. Because when the parachutes come out, you know you're in for a nice soft landing back in the ocean off the coast of San Diego. So that's always a fantastic sight to see. And of course, 3 parachutes is all the better. Okay, so here we are. We're splashed down. These big airbags come out just in case there's a chance the spacecraft could land and roll over upside down. And if it happens to do that, the airbags come out, and they would, of course, bring it back up to the top. We've got a Navy ship there. That's what comes and grabs us. These guys go out there first and secure the spacecraft, tie some tow lines around it, and then what they do is they basically drag it into the back of a Navy ship and bring it back for us. So, what did we actually accomplish during Artemis I? Well, we flew 1.4 million miles over 25 days. We went 268,000 miles from Earth. That's the furthest distance that's ever been traveled by human-rated spacecraft. We demonstrated a skip entry. So what a skip entry means is instead of coming straight down, all the way down to the Earth, we actually come down for a while, and then we go back up, and then we come back down in. It takes a lot of very precise guidance and control to be able to do that. When you start going back up, you actually start to lose control because the atmosphere gets thinner. But the reason we do that is because we want to go a long ways. We want to go far down range so we can land right off the coast of San Diego all the time. And in order to do that, you've got to do this kind of a skip maneuver to get you down much further. And then, of course, we splash down within 2 miles of where we targeted. So that's pretty good to do, coming back from 25,000 miles and 1.4 million miles traveled. So we're pretty proud of that. All right, so that's the Artemis I mission. So what are we doing next? We are sending these guys up to visit the lunar vicinity. So this is our Artemis II crew. So about a year ago, we named our 4 crew members, Jeremy Hansen, Victor Glover, Reed Wiseman, and Christina Koch, as the crew to go back to the moon. So Jeremy, he's a Canadian, one of our Canadian partners. So he's a Canadian astronaut going back up. Victor and Reed, they're U.S. Navy pilots with a lot of experience. And Christina, she spent almost a year in space as part of missions up to the space station. So this crew is a fantastic crew. And as soon as they came onto the program, it was just a really big injection of energy for us, knowing that they're there and going to help us really make sure we get the spacecraft to its final stages. So they're in the process of doing training right now and helping us get things ready. I think it's one more. So what are we doing new for Artemis II? Well, okay, since we didn't have crew on board for Artemis I, for Artemis II, we're putting in the crew displays and controls. So we're going to have the control panels up there, let the crew be able to see exactly what's going on. They can control various aspects of the mission. Of course, if you're going to have people on board, you've got to have environmental controls and life support system. We call it the ECLIS systems. You know, that's all your ventilation, your water, your air supplies. We have to have the crew suits, of course. You know, the crew, they go up in suits when they go for launch and when they come back down, and if there's an emergency, they can put on the suits as well in space. And then, of course, you have to have a waste management because we have biological functions that we need to take care of. And so that's all part of what we're doing for Artemis II. And then we've got a lot of new parts of the mission that we're going to test out procedurally during mission as well. So this is what Artemis II looks like. As you can see, it's a little bit of a different orbit, quite a bit different actually. So the first thing we do is we do a couple revs around the Earth. We want to be close to the Earth since we've got people on board initially. In case there's any kind of problems, we can come back much more quickly than we are all the way out at the moon. When we get to number 6, you'll see there, we actually separate from the upper stage of the launch vehicle, and we turn around and do what's called a rendezvous and proximity operations demonstration. So we're not going to do the rendezvous part because we're already close, but what the crew is going to do, they're going to take the stick and they're going to take Orion for a drive. So they're going to drive it and they're going to approach the upper stage as if they were going to dock to it to make sure that they like the handling quality of the spacecraft. They can provide feedback to the engineers and let us know if there's anything that they want to have changed to make it a good experience when we really need to do it on Artemis III. So once we've done that, we're ready to go out to the moon. We do a burn with the service module out to the moon. This time we can breathe a little bit easier because we're only doing minor corrections. We're not doing any big burns behind the moon. And then we come back, and after 10 days, again, we splash down off the coast of San Diego. So again, that mission is going to be in September 2025, so put it on your calendars now, and hopefully we can put on a good show for you guys. So, like I said, you know, the crew, they're actively engaged. You know, the number one thing they're doing right now is they're training for the mission. You know, they're learning different parts of the spacecraft themselves, but as part of learning about the spacecraft, they're providing us feedback and making the spacecraft better. You know, we work very closely with the flight control team to make sure, hey, everything that they want to see in the spacecraft is what we're putting into the spacecraft so they can have a good ride. They've been a very good boost of energy for us. And of course, you know, they got to really take care of themselves too. They want to make sure that, you know, they're prepped for get the food that they like put on board. So they're trying out different samples of the food. They got to try out actually fitting inside the spacecraft. You know, it's much larger than Apollo, but when you're in there with 4 people, it's still a pretty cramped space. And then they got to make sure that everything with the suits and the emergency egress or emergency exit capabilities are all working as they expect it to work. So they're super busy, and we're super pumped to have those guys helping us out with the spacecraft. And they're ready to go, and we're getting ready to go, and so we're really looking forward to it. Okay? All right, so where is the spacecraft right now? So the spacecraft is down at Florida, and the capsule is fully built, the service module is fully built, and as you can see, they've been integrated together, and we're going and doing what we call integrated spacecraft testing. So there's a variety of tests that we can perform with the spacecraft when it's configured together to make sure all the systems are talking together and make sure everything is just exactly how it needs to be. So that's where we are with the Artemis program, and we're really excited to be able to bring it here to you and show you what we're doing and get you guys ready for the future. So again, I would ask, hey, you guys have seen kind of what we're doing. What do you guys think? You guys pumped? Are you guys ready to go back up to space? All right. So we got time for some questions, I think. Happy to take questions from the audience.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, raise your hand real high, right here.
Do you foresee that in the future that we can send robot instead of human being?
I think we'll send both.
Oh.
I think, right, so I think you've probably seen in the news, there's been several robotic landers that have been going out to the moon. And some of them have had a certain amount of success, but you can also see some of the issues that you have with robotic explorers. You know, the human beings are more flexible in a lot of things they can do. And of course, you know, human nature is to want to go explore and to see things for ourselves. So I think that the robotic missions can do a lot to help do some early science, you know, set the stage for humans going back. But I really think it'll be a combination of both and working in conjunction with each other.
All right, other questions? Right over here.
Okay, so my question is, how come NASA hasn't been to the moon for like 50 years?
That is a good question. So there's a couple reasons for that. You know, we wanted to focus more on low Earth orbit. You know, the space station has been up there for 20 plus years. And did you know that there's been somebody living continuously on space station for more than 20 years? We've had people in space for 20 years. So that has allowed us to learn a lot. And then before that, we had the space shuttle. So it was just a matter of a prioritization of trying to understand all the science we could do in low Earth orbit, things like putting up the Hubble Space Telescope, all the science we're doing on the space station. And we've just decided right now that those kind of activities NASA is looking to hand over to private companies, and that's why NASA is choosing to go and explore further out in deep space at this time. So good question.
Other questions? Right up here.
Why does NASA want to go to Mars as opposed to like other planets?
I think, you know, people have always kind of connected with Mars. You know, we've had several robotic landers there, so we think we understand that space, kind of what it looks like and what it might look like to explore there. You know, it's just a huge feat to be able to go out to that distances. Some of the other planets or moons that they've been talking about don't have quite the conditions that Mars have, and we certainly don't have the experience with those there. So I think that's where people are thinking that Mars would give us the best chance to support, you know, humans for long durations from a planetary body perspective.
Right, in the front row down here.
I heard that I was reading or watching a documentary that how do we make Mars more livable? I mean, I heard, you know, that we would need to take our nuclear bombs and put them on Mars in order to make it less cold. I'm sorry if it's not sounding, if I'm not articulating well enough.
Right, yeah. You're talking about like terraforming. So
yes,
yeah, terraforming is, I mean, that's a little more science fiction. You know, I think how we would go back to Mars is more like how we would go back to the moon. So, you know, one of the reasons we're going to the south pole of the moon is because we think that there's ice there, and of course ice means water, and there's lots of different things you can do with water, right? You can obviously use it for consumption, but you can also make propellants from it and fuels and things like that. There's places on Mars that are very similar, where they have, you know, we think to believe that there's ice on Mars as well. So I think initially what we would do is we'd go up there and live in habitats that have shielding with the local soil, and when we actually go out, we're going out in spacesuits. So I think that's the foreseeable future. The terraforming, those kind of things, I think that will be quite a ways down the road. And I think we can live long term as long as we can get access to water. Once you have water, we can grow things and do things like that in both of those environments. But I think that's our near-term future.
Other questions? Oh, the green right here in the center.
So if we go on Mars and live there and we accidentally screw up the water again, where else do we go?
Where else do we go? That's a good question. I think the better question is, how do we not screw up the water? I think it's really important that we take what we're learning here on Earth and apply it to all of our future exploration. And that's one of the reasons that for Artemis, we've got signing what we call the Artemis Accords. And there's a number of countries that have signed in to explore with the United States together, jointly, not as America, but as the human race going out there to explore these places and make sure that we have agreement from all these countries about how to treat these locations, how to treat the moon, how to treat Mars, to make sure that we don't do bad things in those places. So really the Mars question, that's a question for you, right? Because when we go back to Mars, that'll be about the time when you're ready to come and make your footprint and make your impact on the world. So you should be thinking about, hey, how you think we should be making Mars better, and hopefully you can help make sure that doesn't happen.
Any other questions? Yep, over here.
Hello. Okay, so as the general public, if we're interested in this mission, how can we contribute or be part of the mission?
How can you contribute?
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways. We're trying to have lots of ways to connect with the spacecraft. On Artemis I, we had Calypso, which was an interactive computer on board the spacecraft. You could actually send commands from the ground, and they would go up and they would do different functions in the spacecraft. So we haven't announced any of those things that we're going to do for Artemis II yet, but I'm sure that the outreach folks will have several different kinds of ways. So take a picture here, and then make sure you kind of connect back and look. Just be on the lookout. We want to interact with the public. We want the public to be able to, do things like connect with the spacecraft and track where it's at and things like that, and follow it throughout its mission. And for Artemis II, that'll be a 10-day mission. It'll be exciting. And then Artemis III will be even more exciting as we're going out there and docking with the human landing system and things like that. So keep looking.
And they just had the astronaut applications were just open too, so that was open to anyone if you qualified for that as well. Keep your eyes open if you want to be an astronaut. Okay.
I have a question. How long was Mars habitable for?
How long would Mars what?
Habitable for.
How long was Mars habitable for?
How long? Well, it's for humans, it's not habitable yet. So when we go back to Mars or the moon, we'll have to take our habitat with us. We'll have to take a place to live where we can have an atmosphere that we can breathe and function normally. And then when we go outside, we'll have to wear spacesuits. And so one of the things that we're developing right now from part of NASA is developing the spacesuits to allow us to go out in those habitats on the surface of the moon initially, but eventually onto Mars, so we can be there and be safe from the different environments that are there.
And right behind him?
If we ever set up a lunar colony, what would the possible objectives be for the people living there? If we ever set up a lunar colony, what would the possible objectives be for the people who are living there?
If we set up a lunar colony, then what?
What would the objectives be?
Yeah, so the objectives are to live, right? As humans, we want to go explore. We want to explore, we want to live in that environment, we want to understand that environment, we want to see what it takes to survive out there for long durations. And then, of course, we want to do some science. There's different kinds of science we can do, from learning to live there in terms of the ice. You're looking at, the micrometeors coming in there, and just understand what it means to be present in that environment, and then eventually use that as a springboard to go to Mars.
Okay, right over here.
Hi. With NASA discovering all of these new exoplanets all the time, do they have any plans to send an unmanned probe to explore these planets to see the conditions?
For which planets?
Any of the exoplanets that they're discovering.
So we have lots of missions to different places, right? We've got programs going to asteroids, programs going to the moon. There's different kinds of things, so we're always looking to explore. So I'm not sure, which one specifically you're thinking of, but that's what we do, right? We send out these missions to try to find what kind of science can we bring back to Earth, and how can we apply it to make ourselves better here on Earth, and also apply it to human exploration in space.
All right, any last questions? Oh, one more in the back. All right, last question.
If I read it right, I think one of the slides on lessons learned for the Artemis I mission was, it said something like 23% more energy generated than expected. I was just curious what that meant exactly.
So it just has to do with the calculations that we've got with regard to the solar arrays. So we use, when we do calculations as engineers, we tend to be conservative in terms of how much energy we think we're going to have, so we don't overextend ourselves in terms of using too much. So it has to do with the efficiency factors of the solar arrays themselves, and then how well that we're pointing them back to the sun, because they need to be pointed at the sun. So when we fly most of the mission, we actually point the back end of the spacecraft to the sun. So we're not pointed necessarily in the direction we're traveling. We usually point the back end of the spacecraft because that gives us the most sunlight onto the solar arrays, and we were able to stay in that kind of configuration for a larger percentage of the time, and that's one of the reasons we got more power generation than we expected too.
All right, fabulous. Well, everyone, one more time, put your hands together for Dr. Timothy Straube. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Again, if you'd like to connect with him or his team, you can follow any of those social media tags there. You can scan that QR code to find out more. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us here tonight. For those of you tuning in at home, thank you for Astro Live. And thanks again also to the New York Space Grant Consortium for helping to support our show every month. We love you. And again, I would also like to give a special shout out here, and thanks to our fabulous American Sign Language interpreters who have joined us here today. So everyone go like this. There you go. Thank you so much for both of you. So everyone, don't forget, if you haven't already, head up to the Space Shuttle Pavilion to see our new exhibit, Apollo When We Went to the Moon. It's our largest ever temporary exhibit, co-produced with the U.S. Space and Rocket Center and Flying Fish. Also, be sure to head up to the flight deck right now. You can do some stargazing with our friends from the Amateur Astronomers Association. And for those of you who are tuning at home, I'm going to now toss it over to Das, who is right up there, and he's going to have a little bit more with our guest for all of you at home. But otherwise, thank you so much, everyone, for coming to Astronomy Night.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great night.
You guys go back more, or
just that one.
Okay. Yep.
And is that audio on 3? Do we have mics going? 4? All right, cool. I think we're good to go. Let us know real quick if you can hear us. But how about those questions from the kids?
Yeah, I mean, questions from the kids are always the best.
Yeah.
You know, they're just saying what they think.
No kidding. There's a lot of insightful sort of things there. Is it some governed by science fiction maybe, but some just great questions to show the kids are thinking about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they're thinking about the planet and want to make sure that their future, I think, is well kept after.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad they're paying attention. That's one of the reasons it's important for y'all to come and do this sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we want to do. We want to reach out, get people interested in what we're doing, get people interested in having any kind of career that really contributes towards science and engineering. Not just space.
Yep.
So,
good deal. So, Orion, going back to the moon. We all saw the imagery that came down from it. I like imagery because camera stuff, right? Can we expect some of the same types of images? Are there plans for more images? Is it mostly engineering images? How does that all shake out when it comes to building the spacecraft?
So, actually, we were surprised on Artemis I for how good the imagery came out.
It was fantastic.
It ended up really, really good. It wasn't all planned out ahead of time. We talked about the power generation. One of the things that allowed us to do with that positive power generation, it allowed us really to take one of those solar arrays and say, hey, that's our selfie stick.
The selfie stick.
So we didn't have to, position it for optimal power generation all the time. It allowed us to be more forward-thinking and be conscious of trying to take those images.
Yeah.
And then, we said, hey, they're turning out so good. Let's think about making sure we're getting planned out. So we'll definitely be ready to go next time.
Were there some instances where, because you didn't have to worry about the optimal power, you could actually put it in non-optimal orientation to get a better shot?
Yeah, we were definitely thinking about that as we kind of went along.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I sort of understood. There's some limitations on how much video can be sent back. Like, it's what we are interested in as the public. We want to see these shots. We want to see the Earth rising up. All these things that are really visual for us to comprehend. And it's important to get the engineering data as well. Is it a balance? Like, this much bandwidth for cameras, this much for engineering data?
There's always more requests for data than we ever have bandwidth for.
Right.
And we definitely are always considering, hey, what you need and what has to come down. And engineering comes first. There's no question the engineering comes first. So that critical data is coming down. We want to see the data for all the critical events down and get it to the mission control, get it to the engineers in the back room. We try to get some of those things pretty live. I wasn't actually watching a lot of that, what's coming out the public live feed, so I don't really know exactly how that was being streamed out or how.
Well, every time we got an image, we were like, this is fantastic, look at this, it's the moon!
Right, but we definitely recognize that. So there's a big push from the PAO side, public affairs side, for us to make sure we're getting that out there, because, we realize that is a big part of our mission, is connecting with the public, connecting with the next generation and making sure that, hey, they're seeing what we're seeing, and we're being inspired, and so we think that they're being inspired too.
It's part of the thing. Like, we don't just say the Artemis generation because that's a marketing slogan, right? Like, there's an entire generation of people that should be inspired by what we're doing, and one way that we inspire them is we show them what's going on.
Exactly.
Like, look at these cool things that are happening. We're sending people back here now. Right? So being able to get those, I am particularly interested in imagery and video, and especially some of the sped up things where it was on the solar array and then you can speed it up and you can see the arrays turning and see the spacecraft maneuvering. It's just so cool that we're able to share in the mission like that.
Right, and I think today's generation is so visual. They're used to seeing, hey, what's happening now? What's the next thing? And so, we want to keep that stream and keep us in their consciousness.
Yep, absolutely. It's like, take this entire trip around the moon into 60 seconds for your attention span. We can do better than that, y'all. Come on.
Somehow we need to make them recognize that, these things don't happen overnight. It takes years and years of preparation and making sure that things are ready to go and before we move out.
Gotcha. Good deal. Are there any, and I will ask, because we're sort of sharing the bandwidth here, right? And there's all the engineering, the top priority engineering data that comes back down, and these awesome views we get. Are there going to be different views, or better views, or in more views? Is there anything like that that's discussed, or?
I think, given what we did for the mission and the response to it, there will definitely be discussions. Where we're trying to, and we've talked about some things, I'll keep those kind of secret for now, but we definitely talked about, hey, this is the kind of views that we think would be really compelling that we want to bring to the public. And that we think that there'll be things that we should go after, and we think that they rightfully should be part of the mission prioritization.
Right.
So.
I think that if you want funding for your mission, you have to install a selfie stick. And that's like part of the thing. It's like, oh, your spacecraft has a selfie stick. It's just so important to show people these things happening.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm not speaking for NASA, y'all. I'd love to fund all the missions. Let's see here. You worked on Orion from an engineering perspective.
Yes.
Are there any, is this the sort of thing where we flew one Orion capsule and now it's locked in, no changes? Or are there some things that are being upgraded or changed or fixed? Like, where's the band line, or where's the balance between feature lock, because human rating, and changing things that were sort of, hey, we learned this the first time, that's why we flew the first mission, here's some improvements we're going to make. How does that sort of shake out for you?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest priority is adding the features on there that serve the functionality of the next mission.
Right.
So, that's all the stuff for the crew, and I talked about that during the presentation. The crew obviously needs the displays. They need that feedback directly in the capsule, the ability to command different things, to be able to take over and fly the spacecraft should the need arise. They've got to live, right? They got to live there. 4 people have to live in that space capsule for 10 days. So they need all those systems there to support them in doing so. But remember, it's not like, building a car on Earth where you can go driving around the test track for miles and miles. And so, we're changing things on other parts of the systems too. Things evolve with the software. Things evolve with some pieces of the hardware. We try to lock down as much as we can, but we learn things. And as we learn things, we evolve those things, and they change.
Yeah, it's such a balance. You can't just say, oh, we have to fly it exactly the same because we know how that behaves. There's some things you want to make better, improve so it's more operational, add functionality, like for the astronauts, like you said, and that sort of stuff. And on the flip side, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel with the second and third flight. You are building on that previous experience.
We're building on it, but there are exploration missions. And during exploration, you're learning things.
Right. Oh, that's the whole point.
So, exactly.
Yeah. So the whole program that you worked on, is there any specific thing where you look at this and you're like, wow, this was a really cool thing to figure out, or this was really tough for us to work with? Is there anything that sort of sticks in your mind that doesn't get put in a normal PowerPoint presentation?
The whole design behind the skip landing. So we talked about that. I didn't work on that specific system, but I was the manager in that area. Just watching those guys go through their design processes and all the science and engineering that has to come together, understand how that problem is going to work, how the spacecraft is going to design, and you can't test that. You can't go test that. You can understand, get pieces of data that inform parts of it, but you can't go physically do the whole thing. And so you just got to go out there and believe that all your engineering analysis and the simulations that you did were correct.
I was going to say it's ground truth at some point, but I guess it's not really ground truth there. It's like atmospheric truth, skip truth, I don't know, entry proof, whatever it would be called. I think that about wraps up the time we have here. I'm looking off camera to see.
A couple questions if you want from the audience.
Do you have a question from the audience? Yeah, hey, let's get Elysia coming with a wow.
There's a bunch.
There's a lot of questions from the audience.
Okay,
all right, hang on a second. Let's see here. Is your Q&A? Wow, there are a lot of technical questions here, y'all. All right, I'm going to find
some friends watching, so I need to see who sent some of these questions.
Exactly. Okay, I'll put you on the spot. We're talking so much about video and stuff like that. Do we know how much bandwidth comes back down from the spacecraft? Like, compare it to my home internet connection or something.
Your home internet connection is faster.
Really? Okay. That doesn't make sense. My home's not on the moon. Yet.
So I don't think I can quote you any full
full
specifications here. But we do have to compress things to bring them down, and so we go through a lot of compression, and that involves, of course, probably as you know, you have to have high computing power on the spacecraft to get the optimal compression to minimize the bandwidth coming down, and we spend time doing that.
Gotcha, makes sense. And again, you have to share the bandwidth that's available between all the different things that need to come back down.
Exactly.
So, gotcha. Good question. Maybe we can look up the answer to that for y'all. Let's see here. It's just great presentation, Dr. Straube. Is the research here going to speed up trips to Mars to other planets? Are we learning something here by going back to the moon that's going to help us go even further?
Yeah, I think we definitely are. When we go back and send people back to the surface of the moon, stay there for extended periods of time, that's the key. That extended period of time thing, understanding, what our vulnerabilities are in those experiences, what it means to build a habitat on a different, body in the solar
moon,
system.
yeah, either way. Yeah.
So, what it means to do that and stay there, that is going to be the key. And, can we harvest water from those resources that are in situ? In the ice.
Yep.
In the ice on the moon, in the ice on Mars. Are we going to be able to do that successfully?
Yeah, like in theory, sure. It's like, okay, now we've discovered that there's ice there, and we get data that comes in. It's where the ice is and how much it is.
Right.
But have we gone to the moon and actually done that yet?
Yeah.
Well, it's really how this whole thing works, right? You start off and we test as much as we can on the ground. We design, we test as much as we can, but at some point we got to go into space.
Exactly.
And so then we do launches, and we end up learning in low Earth orbit. And we've been operating the International Space Station for so long now, and we learned about living. We put together our camping gear in the living room down on the ground, right? And then we went into the backyard and we made sure we had all our tent stakes and poles and everything, right? That's a low Earth orbit. And now we're going to the moon. We're going down the street or something. It's still a little hop home, right?
Yes.
But it's not all the way to Mars. We'll learn about that.
Right.
And then one day we go even further.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the trip back from the moon would be about 5 days.
Yeah.
Mars is 6 months at the minimum.
Yep.
So that's why we need to learn there in the moon, where we got a little bit of safety net to be able to come home.
Yep.
So.
I think it makes good sense. Like anytime I go camping, I make sure I didn't forget my tent poles or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Put it together in the backyard.
And if you need to drive back home and grab something, you can
exactly. So one last question here, and this is about the time that it takes Orion to get to the moon.
Yes.
Is it just the design of the orbit that makes Orion have a longer trip to get to the moon than Apollo did?
It just depends. I mean, so it depends. Yeah, it depends on the trajectory that we choose and what we want to do with that trajectory. It can take between 3 and 6 days.
Okay.
Is a typical time, depending on exactly what you want to do. You can speed it up, but then you have to use more fuel
to stop when you get there,
to be able
to speed it up in the first place.
Yeah, to be able to do that. So there's lots of different variations. When we did the Artemis I mission, we purposely tried to make that a low dependency on fuel. We want to maximize our fuel margin in case anything happened, or we would have the capability to respond to those kind of things. And that's why that orbit was chosen.
Makes sense. And you design that. You design the trajectory. You shoot for a specific orbit, etc. etc. That's part of the mission planning.
Right.
So
now, when we get to Artemis III, we're going to meet up with the lunar lander, and that is going to be in a specific orbit. So those orbits are being worked out now, and there's other kinds of things you want to take into account. In that case, of course, priority is being able to access the lunar surface.
Yep.
So you got to be able to get from that orbit down to the lunar surface easily and get back up. So that's the priority there.
Makes good sense. All right. Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking time out of your weekend, coming out here to New York City and doing the presentation, doing a little Q&A with us here. It's just always good. Like, we want these programs to continue. We want to see people on the moon. We want to see people on Mars. I say this. I do. I want to see people there. And making sure that the upcoming generation is inspired and knows what we're working on, knows what y'all have been working on.
Exactly.
So when it's time to pass the torch, there are people that are excited and invested in pushing us further out into the stars.
All right. Hey, thank you. And hey, thank you to the Artemis generation for joining us here tonight.
All right. Good deal. Well, folks, that's going to be the end of our show here today. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Again, a lot going in here. Massive thanks to the ASL crew as well. I'm actually not sure which way I'm supposed to point. She's sitting over here from my perspective. But we hope that y'all enjoy this content. I know we're not just sitting here staring at a Starship tank for another 24 hours. That's good too. But coming out here to the museum and helping share some of these things that are going on is other, hopefully, interesting content for you. So for now, we're going to go ahead and shut down tonight's Astro Live. Tim, thank you so much one more time.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to go up to the flight deck and see if we can see some stars. It was actually cleared. That's the other part of the astronomy night here. But we thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for supporting what we do, by the way. We see the super chats and stuff like that come in, especially the massive one that came in. And we will see you nerds later. Thanks for watching, y'all.
And here we go.
Propulsion continues to be nominal. R68 chamber pressure looks good. Following up. Roger, planet. Water powers fly! Tango down to nominal. Climbing downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange! Orange 25! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag.
343 unfolds to go. Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If there's methane, would be igniting in the flare, correct?